Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We're here with Till the Whistle Blows podcast. My name is Sam, joined as always for the fun football talks. Cary Krongard. Cary, how you doing?
Sam, I am doing okay. We are getting kind of deep into the season here.
We're about to hit some fun stuff here. I know last week we had a lot of kind of dud games, but now
Yeah,
we're hitting the fun strides.
we are. Yeah, just a couple notes. Number one, just for the listeners, I'm dealing with some allergies here, so I'll try to, keep it down. But if I'm sniffling and coughing, apologies in advance for that. And number two, yeah, just looking at the NFL games overall this week. Yeah, I thought there were a lot of good games, a lot of upsets, and that's what's great about the NFL. It's a week-to-week game. You can predict, you can look at trends, but I feel like every other week a trend is bucked in one way or another.
That's why you
So
play the game.
the teams that were healthy, at least I think, had interesting games. But I also, Sam, on both the pro level and the college level, I think we're really starting to see the effect of COVID.
Yep.
And I'm curious. I don't know. I feel like they're trying to push through it, but at some point, the NFL may have to make some tough decisions here, or not make any tough decisions and keep trying to push through it. But at the end of the day, I know we want to see. There's going to be a Super Bowl, and I know we want to see the best teams play. And if if everyone's sick, it might not be the best team. It might just be the healthiest team. So,
You got to do what you got to do, sadly. But speaking of COVID, though, so we were supposed to have 3 Thanksgiving games.
yeah,
Ravens Steelers got pushed back to Sunday. Saturday comes around, they said can't do it. They push it to Tuesday.
yeah.
Earlier on Monday or late Monday, right before Monday Night Football, they announced that game got moved to Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, it was. This was a game too. I remember finishing the podcast with you and being, oh my god, we finally get a good primetime game, Steelers Ravens.
Yeah, and then look at what happens.
And yeah, and then it's pushed back, and now they're not even gonna. I don't think they're even gonna have a healthy Lamar Jackson for this one.
They're not. So honestly, this turns to be a big ripple effect here. So that game gets
Yeah,
moved to Wednesday. The Ravens Cowboys game that was supposed to be played on Thursday is now moved to Tuesday. And then the football team versus Steelers game got moved to Monday.
yeah, it's kind of crazy, and this is what I mean. Now that you're late in the season and you don't have really as many buys to be flexible with, I think it
They're
would
definitely going to start hitting some like hard spots here coming up.
I think it would behoove the NFL to kind of put in an extra week here to just give themselves some flexibility. But they didn't call enough, in my opinion. So they want to play through. But I think it's interesting, Sam, because you and I remember this summer we're talking about will a season happen? With COVID, can they do a bubble? All these things, what was it going to look like? And early on, they actually managed to play and did a pretty good job. And to the NFL's credit, I think they've been good, with their safety recommendations. Not all the teams have followed those, but I think they were also hoping that COVID would be in a better place now than it was during the
Yeah, I was gonna
summer.
say we're kind of hitting a kind of a downward spiral
Yeah,
again.
it's actually getting worse now. So that on some level, if you have a player with COVID on every team, I just don't know how you move forward. So this is something to keep an eye on.
It is. Speaking of kind of shit going on here, I know college football had their first female kicker in Vanderbilt.
Sarah Fuller, yeah, Vandy was they had no healthy kickers. They were ravaged by COVID, and this was big. This was really exciting. The first ever female player to play in a Power Five game. Power Five meaning one of ACC, SEC, Big
Yeah,
Ten, 12, and Pac-12. For those who don't know, those are like the big time conferences. And Vanderbilt is a terrible team, so that unfortunately didn't get to kick any field goals, but she kicked off in the second half. Getting some criticism because it's not a great kick. It wasn't a great kick, but you know what? She walked on 2 days ago. She never kicked a football in her life, and you know what? It's not about that. It's a big moment. It's a big moment for the sport, for the history of the game, and so she was the first, but hopefully not the last, Sam. But it was a cool thing to
it
see
was
for those.
awesome. Maybe Jacksonville should take some notes.
Yeah, Jacksonville's been through so many kickers this year. Maybe.
Yeah, and then I saw that one running back had like a huge day as well. They were saying like he had like a lot of like a shit ton of yards, a lot of touchdowns. I forgot what his actual stat line was.
In Jacksonville or
No, the college running back. I forgot his name.
at Vandy?
No, it was a different team. I remember looking at it. Don't remember what game it was, but he had like a huge day apparently.
Um,
Hold on.
Let me just skim the games here. Uh, yeah, you got to give me a little more than that.
Sorry, I don't know much about college football, but I
Well,
just kind of got that update throughout all the stuff. What was it last week? Around
yeah,
13.
Here, I'll just Google CFB running back and see if something comes up in the
That's
news.
not
Okay,
him.
here we
No.
go. Buffalo's Jared Patterson makes history. Ties FBS single game touchdown records with second most yards of all
I
time.
think that was him. Yeah.
70-41 win. He had 30. Wow. Yeah. I this is I didn't even heard. I didn't even I haven't even heard of this, but he had
That must.
36
I don't know what I'm looking for, so that
36
seems to be
carries
right.
for 409 yards. Um,
What are you watching there?
no, it's the auto videos when I pull up the
Yeah. So
article.
all right, but yeah. So he had a huge day too, from what I heard.
That's pretty crazy. Yeah, I don't even I'm I didn't even know that's not even a team I was paying attention to. So that's something.
I was no. It was a huge weekend for sports, not even just football. Like Mike Tyson got back in the ring too.
Yeah, I'm not a big boxing guy, but I
I
saw
know
that.
it was an interesting fight. It ended in a tie. Jake Paul knocked out Nate Robinson.
Well, there were a lot of memes I saw.
Yeah. So all right, why don't we get into football now? Sorry, we it was a very fun Saturday, but let's get into some of
Okay,
the
I have a video. I
action.
have a website that's not giving me an ad blocker notice. So Buffalo Bulls, not Bills, Bulls
Yeah.
running back Jared Patterson ties FBS mark with 8 touchdowns. Um, Junior from Glendale, Maryland, um, was the second most behind Oklahoma Samaje Perine. And I guess they pulled him for some reason late in the game, but yeah, I don't really pay attention to the group of five teams, but good note on that. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was fun.
That's pretty. I mean, that's more than that's probably more. I think that's more than Miami had all year last year on the ground.
All right. Well, why don't we get into some of the football action?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
So we had Thursday Thanksgiving. We only had 2 games this week. Both of them
Yeah.
were duds.
Yes.
So Houston Texans beat the Detroit Lions 41-25.
Yes, they did. And Deshaun Watson's starting to find his stride, Sam.
He's coming back. He is coming back to what he was.
A few weeks in a row now that he's put together really big time performances. I was actually listening to Greg Cosell from NFL Films, as I often do, and he said that Deshaun Watson, for most of the season, has been playing some of the best football of his career. And that actually surprised me a little bit because I think he fell by the wayside early in the year just
Mm-hmm.
because the schedule was tough. The line has been struggling. There was all the Bill O'Brien drama. But Deshaun, it was interesting to hear from Cosell because Deshaun Watson is a guy that, as good as he's been, the film gurus haven't always been bullish on him because as talented as he is, he does at times, kind of break that line between holding onto the football too long and
Mm-hmm.
playing with timing. But he was 17 to 25 for 318 yards and 4 touchdowns and no interceptions on this game. Granted, it was the Detroit defense, but I'll do the math here real quick. That's a lot for that was 12.7 yards per attempt, which is pretty great. And if you watch him play, it's just he looks good. I mean, he's a couple things stand out from Deshaun Watson. Number one's the poise. He always, he hangs in the pocket and he just, he's taken a beating throughout his career and it just doesn't bother him. He's just, he's a big time player.
Mm-hmm.
And number two is both the aggressiveness with which he throws the ball and the accuracy. He's always looking deep, which he's been doing since his rookie year and is kind of a welcome thing to be seen in a league that is so check down heavy. He's always looking for the big play and he often hits it more often than not. We're not talking like early career Josh Allen, where he's like, these are just he's a wild thrower. He's hitting these deep balls
He's
back.
actually throwing it on point. Josh Allen definitely kind of like just heaved the ball and kind of
No,
hope someone came down with it.
no, he's a precision deep thrower, and it's cool to see. And the thing is, Sam, I think this at the end of this day, this makes this job a lot more appealing for the next head coach when you have a young
You
quarterback
got Deshaun Watson there.
that has so much potential, and that probably a lot of people would argue Bill O'Brien was holding him back in his early years. So
Mm-hmm.
we know they have work to do, but that's the big story for the Houston Texans for me. And the other thing, he just had a day here, and glad to see. You want to see good players succeed. The other thing I think is that one of their receivers, I think it was either Kenny Stills or Brandon Cooks. One of their receivers, I think it was Kenny Stills, left the team. Yeah, Kenny Stills and the Texans agreed to mutually part ways. So make of that what you will, which is interesting. I think Kenny Stills is one of those guys that Sort of like Brandon Marshall. He's always good, but he never seems to hang around with one team. So you wonder if it's a personality thing. But that brings them down one more weapon. But
Well, they're actually going
overall,
to be down another weapon because Will Fuller is now suspended for the rest of the year, too, remember?
really,
Oh, I thought
for
you heard. So, yeah, Will Fuller is out for the rest of the year due to suspension.
was it another was it violation of drug policy?
I believe it was, yes.
Do we know what the violation was? Okay, under what the violation was specifically, like what drug he was using.
Texans, Fuller, Roby banned 6 games for PEDs.
Here we go. Earlier this year, I sought treatment from a medical professional who's prescribed medication that he believes to be permitted under the NFL's drug policy. As it turns out, my trust in this professional was misplaced because, you know, I don't love their policy with PEDs because they never tell you what the suspension is, right? And there's
Yeah.
a difference for being, and it's a very wide policy. It covers a lot of drugs, and there's a big difference between being, and this isn't a PED, but there's a big difference between being suspended for weed, which 90% of the NFL uses for pain relief, and being suspended for steroids, which
Yeah.
anyone uses, and but most people would agree that you should be suspended for that. But that's what people think of when they hear that. So that's a policy they need. That's just a little
They
bug.
got to fix that, but Will Fuller's now out for the year. Bradley Roby, cornerback, is also out for the year for the same thing.
Yeah, so that it's going to be a tough go for them. But at the end of the day, make a good head coach hire here, and maybe start to rebuild this team around a talented young quarterback who still is young, by the way, and who is doing what he did at Clemson, which is be aggressive and show up in big time games.
Oh,
I
easily.
did JJ Watt get an interception in this game or
JJ Watt did get an interception and a pick 6.
picks?
It was a pick 6.
He just has a unique ability to pluck those balls out of the air. I mean, you don't see that from defensive linemen, but this is. I remember when he first did it was in the playoff game against Andy Dalton back in 2011, and he, I think it was a 17-10 game, and it was maybe a tied game at the half, and it was just a quick out, and he just plucked that thing out of the air, took it to the end zone. That really turned around that game, and the Bengals weren't able to recover, and he just it's just a unique skill he has. He just does it time and time again.
He does, and I really hope Houston keeps JJ Watt around. That's a talent they need to keep.
He's a talent, and he's also I mean, he's really the face of the franchise at this point too.
Mm-hmm.
And he's well liked. He gives a lot to charity. So I think for him, it's really just a question of can he stay healthy and can they afford him. Unfortunately, Bill O'Brien left this team in salary cap hell here.
Yeah, with that Laramie Tunsil contract that I'm never gonna let go.
Yeah, and just a lot of bad deals.
They completely screwed that one.
So, as Trump would say, some of the worst deals that have ever been made in the history of deal making.
Oh, easily.
Bill O'Brien.
Detroit Lions, though, this was a good loss for them.
Well, we don't have to talk again about
Matt Patricia.
We don't have to talk again about how bad Matt Patricia is because they finally
This was a good loss for this Detroit Lions team. They needed to get rid of him. And you know what was great too? Deshaun Watson was the one who killed him. All the Detroit Lions fans that wanted him gone donated $13 each to Deshaun Watson's charity.
Really?
Yeah, for the amount of wins he's gotten the Lions in the years he's been there.
You gotta love fans. They are so.
Look,
petty.
I like when fans do something charitable to make fun of the bad coach.
Yeah,
I do not like when fans send death threats to athletes when they make one mistake.
Right. At the end of the day, charity is charity. So even if
I'm fine with them, making fun of Matt Patricia because he's run this team into the fucking ground.
Yeah.
But on the other end of the spectrum, when it comes to the Packers game last week that we were talking about, don't send death threats to the player who, first of all, kept you in the game.
No, there's a very big difference between doing something lighthearted and fun and just taking it to a place that doesn't need to be taken. But also just quickly, I'm not a Trump fan at all. I don't know why I just did that reference for anyone listening. But
I kind of skimmed over it, but look, I like when people do this. Like when Buffalo was going to their playoffs to end their drought, the Buffalo fan sent Andy Dalton, I think Buffalo etiquette stuff, over to them and donated to the charity for helping the Bills get to the playoffs.
Hey, any way you can get to charity, I respect it. I do. Yeah. So this game, not a ton to talk about. It was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back.
It was a struggle all around. The only receiving touchdown that was on the day here was from Mohamed Sanu. Adrian Peterson did have 2 touchdowns, but after that, like they really didn't do much. They kind of the second half came in and they kind of rolled over and died.
Yeah, Swift was hurt, or I don't know if he was hurt, but I
Swift,
assume he was.
yeah, Swift is still hurt.
So they split carries between Johnson, Adrian Peterson again. Stafford had 295 yards, but on 42 attempts, so not a ton of efficiency there. I don't think this offense is built to really. They never built this offense in Matt Patricia's time to throw the ball effectively. It was sort of like if they weren't running the football, they couldn't play very well. Just to put a cap, let's just talk about Matt Patricia in generally though, because there I was thinking about this leading up to this podcast. I think there is a difference between coaches that didn't work out and coaches that were bad hires. There are a lot of coaches that, we didn't know, you don't know if they'd be good or not, and they end up not being good because the NFL is tough. But that doesn't make them bad hires. Todd
Yeah,
Bowles, Jets, Eric, Eric Schwartz with the Lions, or not Eric
Jim
Schwartz,
Schwartz.
Jim Schwartz, sorry, Jim Schwartz with the Lions, even Gus Bradley with the Jaguars, right? Like,
They were solid hires, but it just didn't work
it just
out.
didn't work out, and that happens. But then you look at the Detroit Lions, and the two really are Adam Gase and Matt Patricia that were two bad hires from the start. Because this was a team that, and it's been said time and time again, so I do feel like somewhat of a broken record, but it has to be said. This is a team with Jim Caldwell that they were coming off, I believe, a 9-7 season. He had a winning record as a head coach, and then usually that's not a fireable offense. Now, granted, I understand you're Detroit, you want to take it to the next level, but you also have to be mindful of what you've been for most of your existence as a franchise and what is realistic at this point. And when you essentially get rid of a guy who has been, leading your team in the right direction for a guy that is unproven, that has never been a head coach before, and that is very rigid in his philosophy, this is the result you're going to get. And it was just a bad hire from the start. He purged this team of veteran leadership, whether it was Glover Quinn, whether it was Zig Ansah, Darius Slay. He overpaid a bunch of former Patriots that the Patriots themselves decided weren't worth signing. So at the end of the day, this is like the Texans. This is a team that's left in salary cap hell with a lot of dead money. You wasted a lot of Matthew Stafford's prime. You built this team in a way that was rigid and didn't have a philosophy that would allow them to win games. They didn't have a good passing game. They tried to run the football, it didn't work. They played too much man coverage on the back end. Teams knew what they were getting, and you never got buy-in from your team. I mean, there is a great article. It was I think either it was a couple months ago or it might have been last year. So it's a little dated from Kalen Kaler at Bleacher Report about Matt Patricia, and the title of the article is called "When the Patriot Way Goes Wrong," and it really does a deep dive, Sam, onto just Matt Patricia, how disliked Matt Patricia was as a coach, and really how he took this Patriots philosophy of just you have to get in everyone's face, you have to curse people out, you have to we're not going to have fun, and we're going to do sprints all the time, and we're just very little things. You're not allowed to post on social media. You're not allowed to play music before the games. He was just a drill sergeant, and he comes across as kind of a dick and a guy that players didn't like, and it really rubbed players the wrong way. And you have to keep that in mind when you're coaching an NFL team. These are adults with families. You're not coaching a bunch of 18-year-old college kids. So they're not going to take kindly when you speak to them in a certain way. And he got rid of the veteran leadership. He isolated the team. And so his leadership style just didn't work. And it's a style that has worked at times with the Patriots, but it's different when you're winning games and you're winning Super Bowls. There's going to be more buy-in.
One of the things I got to say though about that though, before I'm
Yeah.
sorry to cut you off,
No, go
but
ahead.
with Patricia, like, so he was trying to be Bill Belichick, but you can't, you cannot be Bill Belichick. Unfortunately, you can't. There's no one who can imitate Bill Belichick. What he was is he is a winner. He's a champion. Like he knows what he was doing, and he brought in veterans and didn't like really. He doesn't really disrespect people, but he makes it. He makes his will known, like what he wants, and like he will uphold it no matter who you are.
Yeah. Well, I think a key thing is when you look at the Patriots assistants who don't succeed versus the Patriots assistants who don't succeed seem to think that being the Patriots way means isolating your team, and but in terms of personnel, it means bringing in a bunch of former Patriots and overpaying them. But
Yeah.
that is not what the Patriot way is. The Patriot way is about flexibility over everything else, never committing to one specific game plan, having a different game plan every week, and at the end of the day, asking your players what they do well, and making an approach that fits that instead of trying to pigeonhole them. So this idea that the Patriot way is we're going to pick how we're going to play and we're going to do it and we're going to bring it, we're going to give them a lot of money to guys the Patriots didn't want to give money to. That's the exact opposite of the Patriot way. And then the second part of that, Sam, is the personality part of it. And I think you're right. I think as a coach, you have to be your own guy. You can't emulate, Bill Belichick. I think
No, that's gonna kill him. Like Bill Belichick is a hard, like tough as nails kind of guy, but he doesn't perceive himself to be like a dickish way. He perceives himself to be just like, all right, look, you got to respect what I'm saying. I
right.
am your coach, but he still respects people as adults.
Right. And it's two things. It's one, it's because he wins, so they have more respect for him. But two, like you said, it's just a personality thing. And I think some people can get away with being a little more hard nosed and some people can't. And I think it really just has to do with what kind of personality you are. And it's interesting because this article that I was alluding to on Bleacher Report, it mentioned Brian Flores and it said Brian Flores has a similar approach and he's getting a lot of buy-in. And why did it work for Brian Flores and not Matt Patricia? It offered a few possible answers, but it wasn't entirely clear. And I think one of the things is Brian Flores is just a different personality. So
He is.
everyone's their own person, and you can't assume that trying to be one person just because it works for Bill Belichick doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Patricia. So anyway, just to wrap this up, he alienated a lot of guys in his first year. His second year, he tries to reach out to people. He tries to adjust, make more of a connection. But ultimately, it's too late. He never got people to buy in. And at the end of the day, there are people that are suggesting, certainly there's. I'm not saying it was racist to hire Matt Patricia, but there is somewhat of a racial double standard when you look at the standard Jim Caldwell was held to, and the fact that they then hired Matt Patricia, who had no experience and expected him to fix it. So I think if you're this really, it's just been a waste, and it's unfortunate for a quarterback that he does like Matt Ryan, right? He's not going to be great forever, and
He's not. No, he's.
it's really just been a waste for the last 3 years, and it's an unfortunate hire.
We will we'll get to those in a minute. I have we're gonna have some strong thoughts on that.
Oh, I'm sure you do, but it wraps up an era here, and good for them for recognizing their mistake. But this one was really just doomed from the start. I think most people saw that, and unfortunate. And all you can do is kind of learn your lesson going forward.
Yeah. So honestly, I hope the Lions do make a good hire for GM and coach when they come up. I want to see them succeed. I'm tired of watching their legends retire early or just get mad at them.
Yep, and you feel bad for Jim Caldwell. I mean,
I do. I just read up on what he was doing. He was part of Brian Flores' crew last year, but then he had to take a step back this year for health concerns, and the Dolphins and them kind of split ways evenly. So he's not even in the league anymore.
Yeah, right. And it's interesting. This article quoted Dan Orlovsky, who I'm mad at because of his Carson Wentz takes, but we'll get to that later. But Orlovsky was with the Lions, and he said, when Caldwell was here, he was building a culture, and he was a players coach. Players liked him, and at the end of the day, with a franchise that has been as bad as the Lions, like it takes time to get to the next level, and we felt like we were getting there with Caldwell, and then they just And so I get wanting to take the next step, but you can't. You got to be careful with burning the house down because sometimes that's just going to take 2 steps back instead of 1 step forward.
I always questioned why they fired Jim Caldwell in 2017. I thought he was doing well for them, and I thought like one more year, and I thought he could have got like one more step in there, but they clearly didn't see that.
They felt like they needed a new coach. Well, first of all, I think it was a new general manager who was hired after Jim Caldwell was already the coach. So you get a general manager, and he wants to get his own guy. Bob Quinn is now gone as well. But I think the other part of it is, they were kind of maxing out at wild card losses or 9-7 years, and they wanted to kind of take that next step, which is understandable.
Yeah.
You have to understand it's a process. You have to understand how you got there, and is this realistic that this next coach is going to take us over the hump? The expression, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. If we're doing well now, let's be careful. You also saw this with the Chargers back in 2004. Marty Schottenheimer brought them to the playoffs, but they couldn't take the next step. They fired him for Norv Turner, and they regress every year since, and Philip Rivers has never been back. So you got to be careful. I understand wanting to take that next step, but you can't set your team back. You can't just burn it all down.
It's going to be rough, but we'll see what they do in the offseason. Hopefully they get well. But why don't we move on to that other Thanksgiving game?
Yeah, let's do it.
We had football team beating the Cowboys 41-16.
Oh man, this was finally you finally think the Cowboys are starting to get it together. And now look, in defense not in defense of the Cowboys, but just this game wasn't as lopsided as the score would indicate. I believe it was a 19-10 game.
It was a very close game, but the fourth quarter rolled around, and the football team just said we got this, and then just kind of clicked in their head what they needed to do. The one thing I will mention though, Montez Sweat in this game, he had an amazing interception. He had an amazing pick six. That's really what it was. He did what J.J. Watt basically did, and just took
Yeah,
it to the house.
it's about time. This defensive line is loaded with first rounders.
They
So
got what? Chase Young. They have Montez Sweat, Ryan Kerrigan.
yeah,
Like this front seven is dangerous. It's nice to see them, stepping up.
dangerous. And I haven't looked. The football team doesn't have receivers, but other than that, and they don't have a quarterback.
I
But
was gonna
other
say
than that,
they're missing an offense,
I
except for
haven't.
Antonio Gibson. I'm sorry, except for
Right.
Antonio Gibson.
I haven't looked at them and thought this is a terrible team talent wise. They have a lot of, like you said, the front seven is as good as any team in the league. When you're put in tough positions by your offense, you don't always play up to that level, but they have a ton of talent there. So let's go on the Cowboys side of the ball because I think it's actually sort of analogous when you look at the Cowboys under Jason Garrett, and they were looking for a guy to take them to the next step, and unfortunately they've just regressed in every area. And I don't think Jason Garrett was a great coach, but at the same time, they're certainly worse than they were with him. So maybe it was more about a bad second hire.
I Look, we were talking about bad coach hires, and I still like when they first announced Mike McCarthy was their new coach. I still scratch my head.
I think a lot of us did. I
Like
mean,
that, I feel like that was a step back. Like you picked a coach who doesn't really want to upgrade with the times, and I think that's his downfall, really.
it seemed like a lateral move, but the results have indicated that it's actually a step back,
It's a
which is
step back.
pretty
The
cool.
one thing, like, I'm not here to defend Jason Garrett. I'm not. He's not the greatest coach. I don't know why the Giants picked him up as an offensive guy.
Yeah.
But when it comes to what he did, at least he like knew to like kind of move forward a little bit. It wasn't
Right.
the biggest move, but he made changes at some point.
And there was somewhat of a consistency with watching the Cowboys play. I mean, they never they certainly were disappointing, but they never reached the lows that they have this year.
Yep.
Now maybe they were due for this. Maybe there was regression. Maybe it was bad drafts. Maybe it was who knows what it was. I mean, I certainly if Dak Prescott had gotten injured either way, it would have been a tough out. But they just look really bad. Andy Dalton struggled, and he struggles when he's under pressure. And this offensive line that used to be one of the best in the league is now struggling. And I think Zach Martin uh, got carted off, didn't he? Either this week or
Yeah, he
last.
did. He did get carted off. You're right. Sorry, I was just thinking
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. So that's a big loss for them. Um, and Zeke Elliott, I think, had another fumble in this game, didn't he?
Hold on. I got their entire
That's
stat line up. He did have one fumble and lost it.
that's five. I believe that's five fumbles and all lost on him for the year. So he's got a hands issue now.
He is taking a huge step back here.
So you look at your offensive line, you look at your star running back, and you're seeing what's happening is when your star players aren't playing to their capability and are actually regressing here. And Andy Dalton, he's a compliment. He's a guy who, if you have a team around him, he's going to look good, and if you don't have a team around him,
They built this team for Dak and really
yeah,
wasn't even built for Dak at that point.
yeah. Dak was the only reason they were winning, and even with Dak, they were still losing. It was sort of a one man show there. But if you look at this game, it's interesting you mentioned Mike McCarthy because we know about the criticism he's gotten from play calling over the years.
Mm-hmm.
I think from a management perspective, obviously there are a lot of criticisms there when you have a team that just isn't has an attitude that they're just not showing up from week to week, and there was some of that or in Green Bay with people talking about some sort of the lackadaisical approach he had later in his career and sort of resting on kind of what he'd done earlier in his career. But
Mm-hmm.
from a play calling perspective, I think he's aware of there was a lot of criticism about him. Oh, he's too conservative. He's not, innovative enough. And at times I felt like he has taken that to heart and has made poor decisions because of it, almost like he's trying to force it. Some of these fourth down decisions, Sam. I mean, early in the season, there was the Falcons game where he was down 9 and he goes for 2 with like 2 or 3 minutes left. Now this is a big debate in the analytics community, but personally, I think you have to kick the extra point there because you keep it a one-score game. If you go for 2, then you don't have time. You have to recover an onside kick. You don't have time, and you don't necessarily have time enough to do that. Now, in this game, he's down by 9, and he goes for 2, and he doesn't get it. And then you have the spinner onside kick, and we all know how that turned out. But that was kind of a fluke play, and if that play doesn't happen, and the Falcons jump on the ball like they should have, then that's a loss. And we're all talking about why did he go for 2 there? because if he had just gone for one, he wouldn't have need to recover an onside kick. And so that was one example that came to my mind of him forcing it. There were a
Hmm.
bunch of examples in this game. Fourth and inches, instead of running a QB sneak, he runs a hitch on the outside and it's contested. He goes for it inside his own territory and he runs a fake punt, and he does all sorts of reverses. It's like a double, triple reverse. Like I don't have the play in front of me, but he snapped it to one guy who handed it to one guy going around to one side, who handed it to another guy coming back around. By that time, he just got tackled way in the backfield, and it was a call. First of all, you could argue he shouldn't have even been going for it, but if you're going to do a fake punt and not throw it but run it, you just got to go straight up the middle, because with that much misdirection, you're just not going to have time to get to the first down mark. So he's made some questionable decisions. It seems like, yeah, like he wants to go for it on fourth down, but he's not really taking into mind when you should go for it versus when you shouldn't. He's just kind of being reckless about it. And then so the, and then on the football team side of the ball, Sam, um, Alex Smith played efficiently. Nothing spectacular, just what
Hmm.
you'd expect from him. But yeah, Antonio Gibson, late in this game, they kind of turned the ball over to him with the lead, and he put it away. I mean, he put it to bed. And I think him and Terry McLaurin are kind of, on offense at least, the young building blocks for this team moving forward, if they are going to kind of build an offense, I
If
think.
they really, they need all they need is just a quarterback right now, and then the other pieces will step into line.
Yeah, and again, we talked about last week what's their plan for the future, but and Alex Smith certainly isn't their long term plan, but Ron Rivera came out and said he might want Alex Smith back, so who knows? Maybe you get another year Alex Smith here if you're not
One
in
year
position.
Alex Smith, and then maybe for the 2022 draft, find a quarterback.
Yeah, maybe you're not in position to draft a guy. Who knows? But
Because honestly, at this point, it might be, they could easily still make the playoffs, but they know they're not getting Trevor Lawrence. They're probably not going to get the Justin Fields kid. They're not gonna get one of those high
yeah,
draft picks. It seems like right
right.
now.
It's just, you look at this team, and what's been holding them back sort of over the decade isn't bad, isn't bad players. It's just it's sort of bad management, right? And bad, bad drafting, and Dan Snyder, and
It's
bad
like
coach.
Dan Snyder has not been great for them,
Right.
and they've picked coaches that I feel like haven't really worked well for them.
Yeah, that haven't been a good fit. I would agree, and that there hasn't been a clear understanding of philosophy. It's sort of kind of just been the what's the next hot thing, right? Like there was Mike Shanahan, and he kind of tried to play with Rex Grossman for some reason, and then
He didn't pan out too well. Jay Gruden didn't really do much.
I think Jay Gruden's a good head coach, but they go in and they're again just a lack of kind of communication between, Jay Gruden didn't want Dwayne Haskins, obviously, but
I was gonna say
that
put Jay Gruden on a different team and let's see what he does. Like
right.
I can't say he's a great coach, but he was definitely thrown into like kind of a bad situation.
And he's definitely a good architect of offense. I mean, he comes from we've been talking about the Shanahan, stretch zone school.
Yeah.
He's part of that school as much as anyone. He had a big part in the development of Kirk Cousins. So just solid win, and the free fall continues for the Cowboys. And again, talk about ownership here as well. I mean, this team is falling apart. Again, it was a bad head coaching hire, but it also, they're a mess on defense. Their star players aren't playing well. And I've never been a fan of Jerry Jones. I think he's an arrogant
Oh, I thought
asshole.
you were talking about football team, and then I realized you're talking about Cowboys. Yeah. See, I think he needs to find someone to help him be a general manager.
Well, that's the thing. He puts it all on his plate, and he's just not very good at it.
Well, all right. So I'm gonna make the comparison to the Falcons because that's where we're going next. But like
Yeah,
Dan Quinn kind of did the same thing too, where he got rid of his defensive coordinator and just kind of took care
right,
of that himself, and then that's where we kind of got with those bad play calls on defense.
right.
And that's what I feel like is what's happening here. Like he doesn't really have someone to help him out on this side of things, and now he's just picking up like the big like he's not really picking like what helps. He's picking what sells.
Yeah, and I will remind you that he wanted to draft Johnny Manziel, and his son talked him out of it.
Yes, I do remember that.
He was mad at his son for that, and that like saved it, and it's just an ego thing with Jerry Jones too. I mean, he needs to be in the like what other owner of a team like comes out after every game and like gives quotes to the media about your head. Like, you can't function as a head coach. You got to let your head coach do his thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say like other owners like they'll say things, but like usually it's like to give their team like hope.
Motivation, yeah. No, he I think it's hard to be a head coach when you have Jerry Jones staring over your shoulder, and when you have him, he has such a key decision, part of the draft, and he's really not been a good general manager. I agree. I think he should get a general manager and do it like every other team does it, but I don't think his ego will let him do that. Speaking of his ego, and just he this game, Sam had again, talking COVID. This game had 30,000 fans at it,
Yep.
which is within the it wasn't breaking rules. It's within what's allowed by the NFL, but it's more than double than any other team in the league has had. Most teams are playing with empty stadiums or just a
I was
couple
gonna say
thousand.
Maryland, like Baltimore, shut them down again.
Yeah,
Washington's not even doing it. I think
most teams.
Atlanta maybe did like 10,000.
It's more than double what any other team had, and it's a dome. So remember, you're not outside, so that makes you're more of an enclosed environment.
I thought
And
he
he
would have
comes
opened
out
the roof at least.
right, and he comes out and says we want to keep increasing crowds. Um, at a time when COVID is getting worse, not better. And for Jerry Jones, I think it's a great example of he just cares about money. That's all he cares about. Number one, and number two, maybe Jerry Jones think less about kind of selling tickets and more about fixing this football team, because right now it's one of the worst in the league, and I don't think there's a clear fix.
I think the biggest thing that bothers me right now about him is he's trying to say that his situation is worse than what happened to the Broncos on Sunday. And I'm like,
Did he say?
no. Yeah,
What did he?
there's an article actually I'm looking at right here. Jerry Jones has no sympathy for the Broncos QB issue, giving Cowboys woes. So what I'm going to say is no, because he had another quarterback on his roster in Ben DiNucci. The Broncos lost all three and had to start a practice squad wide receiver.
Yeah,
So
I'm looking at this, Sam, and it's just again, this is why I think the guy's just an asshole. I mean, two things. Number one, it's incredibly disrespectful to Ben DiNucci, who yeah, he sucks, but it's not his fault he sucks. He's a player on your team. Like,
he's your
don't go,
third string quarterback, and you probably don't use him that much.
don't go out and trash a guy on your team that is your third string quarterback. That is he's 24 years old, Sam. He's younger than us.
Yeah,
I
like
mean,
you're trashing him, and then why are you going after the Broncos? First of all, like you had nothing to do with them. The NFL, I feel like, dropped the ball on that one, and we can talk. I want to
yeah,
get into that one too.
we'll talk about that. But you're
But like,
trashing.
why are you picking on the Broncos? Like they're doing just as bad too, and like they're put in a worse situation than you.
That and look, it's disrespectful to DiNucci, but you also drafted DiNucci, so like, how can you complain? So at the
Yeah,
end of the day, like, this is what I think. Jerry Jones, I think it's all about ego with him, and I think these comments are just another example of that. Like how like what other? It's just so tone deaf. We've seen him. He's a rich guy. He goes in his little suite and he makes his comments from up above, and it's all good and well if you're one of the richest people in the world. But if you want to actually win football games and live up to your name of America's team, uh, it's not going to do it. It's just not. And Cowboys fans, they deserve better. This is a really bad team, and for a team that has national expectations every year of winning a Super Bowl because of their brand, they've been nowhere close to that. They haven't been close
they
to that
haven't been close to that in
since
years.
the days of Aikman and Irvin and the big three. And that was Jimmy Johnson. That wasn't uh, what's his name?
Jerry.
Yeah, that was all Jimmy Johnson. So
Well, unfortunately, since Jerry Jones is the architect who helped build that, that's kind of the logic he has of why he doesn't need one. Because he's like, oh, I did it once, I can do it again, when he hasn't done shit.
and what was that? 20, 30 years ago now?
That was in the '90s, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you and I are we're breastfeeding the last time the Cowboys were good. So
The last time, I mean, like the Cowboys have gotten close, but like Dak hasn't won a playoff game. What, Romo won one playoff game?
and Romo was really good, and Romo was kind of a one man show covering up for bad management and bad coaching, and now Dak is the same thing. That put Romo or Dak on a good team, they're definitely winning more playoff
I was
games.
gonna say they had the weapons. It was just they were not well coached. Like Romo, what he had T.O., he had Jason Witten. You good?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say Romo, like he had weapons. Like it's just they're not utilizing these weapons.
Yeah, well, and again, Sam, and again, we should move on soon. But if
Yes,
like if you go back, I remember the 2011 season was the first season I really started getting into football, and I remember who's calling me? Sorry, it comes up on my computer for some reason. I remember that year watching the Cowboys game, and like there were so many games, and this is where I started souring Jason Garrett, where they were just winnable games that they would just
they
blow
lost.
in the most like. Do you remember there was the Cardinals game where he iced Dan Bailey, like
Yeah, he
he
iced his own kicker.
iced his own kicker. There was the Lions game where like they jumped out to a huge lead, and then Megatron had that like catch in triple coverage, and they gave it up with like 30 seconds left. There was the Giants game, the first Giants game, 34-37, where Dan Bailey's field goal was blocked after Tom Coughlin iced him. But that was a game that Romo was like, threw 4 touchdowns, had like probably less than 10 incompletions on the day. That was a perfect game by Romo. And you saw the same thing the next year. I'm going to the 2012 season, not to rehash too much ancient history here, but the Baltimore Ravens, that was a game they mismanaged the clock. Tony Romo throws a slant, and then they can't get up to the line and call another play, and it's a missed field goal. So they're just the Saints game, they lost that game in overtime. So it's really been poor defense, and
It's just been rough for them. But you
it's a
know
big
what? It's the Cowboys. If they don't want to figure it out, then they don't figure it out at this
yeah,
point.
and yeah, no, you're right. But it hasn't been a good run for them, and that's it's really just been as bad as it looks this year.
It is. All right. We definitely need to pick up the pace a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it.
So we're going to start Sunday games here. I'm not going to go too crazy, but we're going to go a little bit here. We had the Falcons and the Raiders, 43-6. And where was this all year? All
Well,
year. Where the hell was this?
right. Well, I think just quickly on the side of the Raiders, I think this was a pretty clear position for a letdown game. After you.
Oh no, everyone was calling this a trap game, and John Gruden already earlier in the week said, "Look, we can't sleep on this team," because he already called the Falcons the best 3-7 team he's ever seen.
Yeah, I mean it's sorry, I'm getting all these notifications. I'll try to channel. Yeah, so on the side of the Raiders, like you said, trap game. That when you have an emotional, it wasn't a win, but they were so close to winning
They had
on
a rough loss against the Chiefs, and
against
to
a
come out and do
division
that,
rival, against a division rival who you probably play them as well as anyone play them in the league, and that against a Super Bowl team, it's easy to kind of stroll into Atlanta and think, oh, we're going to just knock this out of the park. And they got a lot of pressure on Derek Carr, which he hasn't faced a lot of pressure. He's not very good under pressure. He had a fumble, he had a pick six, and
he had he had 3 fumbles.
Nathan gets really.
He had 3 fumbles. Josh Jacobs fumbled, and whoever Nixon is, he fumbled. Like there was 5 fumbles on the game, and they lost 4 of them. And they brought Nathan Peterman in at the end of the game.
Peterman, I didn't even know he was still in the league. But
dude, John Gruden loves Nathan Peterman.
Yeah, I have no idea why, but he really likes Nathan Peterman. This was kind of old school, Carr. We've seen him protect the football for most of this year, and he kind of regressed his old form. But for the Falcons, and I'll let you take this in effect, just a very quick note on them.
Go ahead.
For the second straight year, they, like you said, they turned the defense around the second half of the season, but it's like, after being historically bad for the first half, and it's too little too late for them.
It is. Like, we're 4-7. The best we could probably do, like, if we really want, we could probably go 8-8. That's like probably the best, because we could maybe squeak out a win somewhere, like a few wins out somewhere. But it's like there's no hope, because like you're playing against the Saints later. You've got the Chargers still. You've got 2 games against the Buccaneers, and then you have the Chiefs. So there was no point in really what they're doing here. But like on the defensive side of things, like everyone stepped up. Like they're trying to prove a point here. And like I love that they're stepping up finally, because I thought this defense was good to begin with. Mm-hmm. But like, what the hell's going on? Like, yes, your corners are very, very subject right now. But like, you have some good linebackers. You have decent pass rushers. Like, you definitely still like this defense isn't amazing. Maybe like mid 10s. Like I wouldn't say top 10. Like maybe like 15, 16 defense if you really play it a little bit. But, like, you finally play. You're missing Julio. You're missing Todd Gurley. The receivers decided to step up. The O-line decided that they actually wanted to protect Matt Ryan so he doesn't look at the fucking floor again.
Yeah.
Like, they were all over the place with this one, where they fucking dominated the shit out of the Raiders. Deion Jones had a huge pick six on Derek Carr.
Yeah, and I mean, that was the thing. I mean, certainly, it's like you said, it's not the best defense in the league, but after when they went to the Super Bowl and lost to the Patriots, their defense wasn't good that year, but at the same time, they had enough of a young core with Deion Jones and some of the speed they had at linebacker and at corner that you thought, okay, if they build around these guys, then they're just going to get better in Dan Quinn's scheme, right? Like for that was that was the first year, and it would just there was young talent that would go up, and instead it's just fallen off. And Deion Jones, like, where has he been? That was, again, that's the sort of playmaking you expect to see from him every week. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with the coaching hire again, sort of like the Lions. This is big about what their coaching hire is, and do they get a scheme that players can buy into here because
Well, the thing I'm going to say is, so there was a report. Raheem Morris seems like if he keeps doing what he's doing, he's probably going to be the hire.
mm,
He's Arthur Blank is loving what he's looking at, and like this is I love Arthur Blank as an owner, but this is
yeah,
where he kind of annoys me a little bit.
yeah,
He is very, very loyal to anyone that comes to this organization.
yeah.
He
Well,
he he holds on to people a little too long.
well, that's as a Giants fan, I totally understand that because we're like that as well, and
Yeah,
that's
like
why.
look, I like that they're holding on to people. Like we held on to Roddy White until he was basically a fucking walking corpse.
Right,
We held
right,
on to Matt Bryant until he really couldn't kick anymore. Like they are loyal to a fault. Like honestly, after this 1 year with Todd Gurley, they might even try to keep him around again.
yeah,
But I don't know. But like they like their in. They like to keep it in. They don't like to like go crazy on the free agents. I've noticed. Besides the Steven Jackson signing.
right,
But like they keep they're gonna develop AJ Terrell. They want to really keep Aluakon. They're gonna keep him around because they really have been like developing him. And you mentioned the 2016 year, but I feel like Dan Quinn's system kind of faded away from what the players were doing from them because Desmond Trufant and Robert Alford when they were around, they're not zone corners. They are
right.
man to man. They press up on people. They could not play the zone.
And Morris is a defensive guy. Do you know what his philosophy is? Is he a man to man guy? Is he a blitz
He
guy?
was actually part of John Gruden's coaching staff for years.
Okay.
So I believe he takes whoops. I believe he takes from John Gruden.
Uh huh. You know it. So that would be. I mean, is that a Tampa 2 kind of defense?
I think he's Tampa too.
Yeah. So I mean, here's the thing. Raheem Morris, like my only be like let's see what happens to defense. But again, like you said, loyal to a fault. I mean, and that was sort of the story. It was the same story last year, right? They started the year as terrible, and then they hold on to Dan Quinn because of the second half turnaround, thinking, okay, now this defense will be something. And then we come back this year, and it's as terrible, if not worse, as it was to start the season last year. And my other problem with that is, even I've found at times, especially with defense, that like even if you're a good coordinator, a head coach can be so much more responsibility that like even the areas where you coordinate can fall off because you have to manage the whole team and you can't focus on that. And I think you saw that the best example of that was Rex Ryan because I think Rex Ryan's a great defensive coordinator, but as a head coach, his defenses were average at best after those first 2 years with the Jets, where of course they were phenomenal. But then you look at what he did after that with the Bills, and his defenses weren't quite as good. Um, and I'm hesitant of hiring defensive coordinators in this day and age generally as head coaches.
Yeah, we've kind of seen defensive coordinators not be the greatest head coaches.
Yeah, Vic Fangio struggling,
Yeah,
Fox, struggled. So I'm not positive about that. If they do hire, Raheem Morris, I guess hope for him. First of all, see what happens the rest of the season. Hope the defense keeps improving,
yeah.
and then hope that he can continue to play well with the defense and uh, get a better offensive, get a good offensive coordinator.
They honestly, again, this is to the loyalty. They need to get rid of Dirk Cutter.
Right.
This is his second run through, and he's doing the same shit he did last time he was here.
Again, and that was again you talk about loyalty with an organization, right? But that
Yeah,
was they'll do that, but it's tough. You almost don't. Again, you don't want you're glad that they're playing well, but like if that's going to roll them into a false sense of security to make the wrong hire.
they're gonna make the wrong hire, and then they're gonna bring him back, and it's like I didn't like when they hired Sarkisian. Like I gave him a
Yeah,
chance, but that wasn't the greatest.
yeah. They and then I mean that was also a tough spot after Shanahan left, and that's the thing. If you have a coordinator you like, you have to either promote him or move on from him, right? Because like if you like Raheem Morris, you can't say we're going to get a new head coach but stay defensive coordinator. He's going to be like, no, Matt,
No, he's gonna be out.
right. So
So that's the
that's
thing. Like they're gonna try. They're probably gonna keep Morris because they're gonna want to keep him if he keeps doing stuff like this.
Mhm. But I hear you, Sam. I mean, the Giants are the same way. They bring back Dave Gettleman because he was originally in the organization, and my thought
Yeah,
is, no, you got to get someone new. Like don't no more retreads, right?
don't
Like
retread. And honestly, like I liked Thomas Dimitrov, but I think it was his time to go too because he was picking the wrong people.
oh yeah, and again he was one of general managers kind of he made the right picks early on and it was like it was time for him to it was like with the Giants Jerry Reese like Eli Manning Plaxico Burress like you got this core Sean O'Hara like that was great for the pre 2010s but like then you kind of you run out of steam and you need a new guy.
I was gonna say He did excellent with the Matt Ryan pick. He did excellent with the Julio pick.
Yeah.
He got Grady Jarrett, but then he really didn't do much. Like Deion Jones was an easy choice for everyone.
Hmm. Yeah, I think these guys should have been gone last year. And again, similar to
Yeah.
the Lions, I think they've sort of wasted Matt Ryan's prime here, unfortunately. So let's hopefully they can make the right hire and get a team around them here because
They're
they've
going to have to do something quick. Like Matt Ryan's still slinging, but he's probably not got that many years left.
yeah, he doesn't. And outside of that Super Bowl run, they've struggled a lot. I mean, and I remember Sam, after Matt Ryan, after the 2012 season, Matt Ryan, he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He's still on a Hall of Fame path. But after those first 5 years, they were winning a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
Scott Sizemore, one of my favorite writers, wrote Matt Ryan's first 5 years. He wrote a blog piece about how Matt Ryan's first 5 years are historically good and historically like winning. Like he just won so many games, and he's like, if he and in the last line, it was sort of foreboding. It was like if he falls off, or if the team falls off, let's just appreciate what they have here. And it is after those 5 years with Mike Smith, it just kind of fell off. And he compared him to Johnny Unitas, who was very similar, who was an all-time great QB. His first 5 years fell off. So hopefully they can salvage something before the Matt Ryan Julio Jones era ends here.
Yeah. So, you know what? It's sad, but I will bring up one last thing. You remember when they fired Mike Smith and I told you who I wanted them to hire?
I don't remember that. Who was
I
it?
remember I said I wanted them to hire Rex Ryan.
Really?
I remember saying that a lot. I was happy with, I was fine. I wanted to give him a chance, but I was like, I wanted to see Rex Ryan.
That sounds like something high school Sam would say. So
Yeah, because you know what? He did great with defenses, and then I wanted to see what would happen if he had an offense.
yeah,
But you know what? I liked what Dan Quinn did until the later years when he started kind of sucking.
and that scheme is kind of the cover three scheme. It's kind of grown stale. Unfortunately, I don't love like again Raheem Moore. If he's running up Tampa 2, I think that's been out of the league for like 10 years now. But we'll see. Maybe he's changed. I don't know.
He might have different ideas, but all right, we're gonna take too long again, so let's move on. We got the
Yeah.
Bills and the Chargers. That was 27-17. Before we talk anything about what the players did, I need to discuss what Anthony Lynn did. Worst play calling I've ever seen in the last minute of a game.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so I'm actually, as you know, I write for the LA Football Network, and
Yeah.
there's a group chat where they talk about the Chargers a lot. Most of them are Chargers fans. I'm not really a Chargers fan, so I usually just ignore it.
Mr. Giants over there.
Our boss Ryan texted the group and he said, "Okay, guys, who wants to write the next article about possible next head coaches for the Chargers?" And Anthony Lynn seems like a good guy, and he seems like a guy the players like. But again, this was they throw what is essentially a Hail Mary here on fourth and the length of I-80, right? And it's caught, not caught in the end zone, but it's caught. But they're down 2 scores, and at that point you have to hurry it up. You have to go up, spike it, and throw 3 passes, and then either score or kick the field goal because you need an onside kick. And they run out the clock. I think I didn't see the sequence, Sam, but I believe they go up and they huddle up maybe or
No, they don't know. So, all right. Number 83 on the Chargers, he catches the Hail Mary. He's dropped at the 1. They do a no-hurry offense. But instead of letting Herbert, who is your amazing rookie quarterback who is throwing the ball like amazing, he hits everyone, you hand the ball off to Austin Eckler, who is just coming off of injury to go through a defensive line of the Buffalo Bills?
And they were down 2 scores at this point.
It
right?
was 27-17. Why are you handing off the ball?
Right. With what? With like
You have like a minute left.
a minute left. Yeah.
You have Justin Herbert, again, who is slinging the ball like a fucking pro. You have Keenan Allen, who is an all-pro receiver. Hunter Henry, who's a big tight end. They were all on the field. Why didn't they throw the ball?
Yeah, and it's not even about the players at that point. At that point, it's just about the game management, right?
That was a horrible play call.
When you're down 2 scores, you got to throw. You got to throw it. You cannot afford to run the ball there. And especially when you have the momentum off a big play, you can't let them regroup defensively when you have them on their heels. And then I didn't see what they ran on second and third down because the highlight didn't show it. But then I saw the last play of the game. There was no time left, and they ran a QB sneak, and time expired. And the QB sneak didn't work. It was actually one of the worst QB sneaks I think I've
No,
seen.
they like ran the ball. They didn't do anything. It was stupid.
It was a bad QB sneak. He goes up under center, but I don't think anyone else knew he was sneaking it because the line was pass blocking. So he has no blocking, and he's just hit at the 3 yard. So yeah, I mean this is probably the straw that broke the camel's back for Anthony Lynn. As much as we like him as good,
He could be a great guy all he wants, but that was a terrible play call.
well, and they've blown too many games lately.
Honestly, if they blow one more game that he's gonna screw up like that, he's gonna be gone.
The game management between the Matt Patricia led Detroit Lions, the Dan Quinn led Atlanta Falcons, and the Anthony Lynn LA Chargers have been some of the worst you'll see maybe ever. I think it's fair to say when it comes to late games. On the side of the Falcons and the Lions, it's blowing leads. On the
I was
side
gonna
of
say Dan Quinn lost a bad game to Nick Foles, so
right
we're not gonna we can't talk about that anymore with him.
on the side of the Chargers, it's well, I guess here it's been blowing leads too, but yeah,
They've
guys,
blown
can we
17-point leads in a lot of their games. But like they have just I don't get why they didn't run up the line. Like Justin Herbert had 300 yards passing this day.
yeah.
Why didn't they let him throw the ball?
It makes no sense, and that was one of those where it was a mistake, and anyone watching it knows it was a mistake, and that's just about as much as you can say. On the side of the Bills, not a ton to say here, Sam.
Josh Allen had a very sloppy day.
Very pedestrian day for Josh Allen, 18 of 24, 157, a touch and an interception. They did have over 100 yards rushing. Kind of throwback Bills here. But they're 8-3. They're in a good position, and they win games in different ways. Not every win is pretty, but they're winning, and the Bills have passed.
They found a way to win. Unfortunately, they did have a bit of turnover issues in that fourth quarter because Josh Allen threw an interception. Bad snap caused the fumble turnover, and then Devin Singletary also had a turnover. So that's kind of that might be a little concerning for the Bills, and they might want to address that real quick.
It was sloppy. They got to clean it up. I would think that they will.
McDermott seems to be a really good coach. I think he will turn it around.
I think they'll clean it up. They're in a good position. It was a sloppy win. Not all wins are pretty, but a win's a win.
Yep.
As they say in golf, there are no pictures on the scorecard.
There are not.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's move on to your team, the Giants and the Bengals. The Giants won that 19-17, and I want to let you take the lead on this one for your thoughts because I know you're the Giants fan here.
Yeah. So speaking of not pretty, right? It's never pretty for the Giants. I mean, it's tight. Even against a Burrowless Bengals, it's 19-17. The Bengals had a chance to go down and win it late. This is their brand of football. I'm not going to call it Giants football because that would be ridiculously cliche, and I won't do it. But it's what they've been playing with this season, and it's what they're doing with what they've had in the cupboard. They've become, a sort of dink and duck offense, sort of, kill you by paper cut, death by paper cut, or death by Graham Gano field goal rather is what it's been as of recent. And again, it continues to be a roller coaster year for Evan Ingram. He does get a big play on the year, but then he also has a ball, knocked out of his hands and it turns into a turnover. So he continues to be ridiculously inconsistent. But they get a win, and if by the low bar of the NFC East, they're probably the best team in the NFC East right now. And
they're in first place.
You got to like with what Joe Judge is doing with a team that actually absolutely is completely bereft of talent. I just like what they've been able to do on defense. They give every team a fight on defense, and they also have improved a lot as the season has gone on. I mean, when I was looking at my blog post at the beginning of the season about what are the big questions for every NFL team, my question about the Giants was can they be good enough on defense, because that was their issue last year, and they've been great on defense this year. The offense needs work, but they're again, I don't we'll see where they're drafting. I don't know if what you do with quarterback at this point or where you go in the draft. They have a lot of work to do, but I think it's been a good coaching job considering how little they have. Now, the problem here is that Daniel Jones gets injured and he might be out for a bit, and so you're stuck with Colt McCoy, who I think is, but he's a journeyman at this point in his career, and I think he needs a little more team around him than the Giants have to succeed. So they're in the thick of the NFC East hunt, but I think it depends on how well Colt McCoy and how long Daniel Jones is out, and I think that's also problematic just because A, you never want your QB to be injury prone, but B, you want to be. We're still evaluating Daniel Jones. We don't know if he's the guy. He's been playing better as of recent, but you'd like to see these last few games, especially if you're going to be in a position to draft a guy. Although it looks like now with 4-7 on the year, we may be headed out of that kind of Fields territory. But the Giants win, and I didn't watch it because they're not a very exciting team to watch, but they win ugly. But again, winning is winning, and I'm impressed with the improvement of this coaching staff.
They're definitely doing well. That Daniel Jones injury is definitely going to be a rough one since they've invested in him.
Yeah, so hopefully he comes back quick. Not, I really don't have anything to say about the Bengals.
Brandon Allen, I didn't realize he was on this team. He seemed to be doing all right.
He's not a start. I mean, he
He's
started.
not a starter by any
I,
means, but like,
I honestly would not expect the Bengals to win another game this year,
no, they're probably not winning any others.
and I would take a look at getting rid of Zach Taylor. I think as much as you want continuity for Joe Burrow, he was. I think
He's you know what, we know he's already kind of an issue, so it makes sense to get rid of him now while you still have your young quarterback.
Joe Burrow is good enough that like it's not like he was playing with a great team this year. He's good enough to play with anyone. So bad win. And so again, again, not pretty by any means, but they're winning. So
A win is a win.
win's a win is a win.
All right, let's go.
You play to win the game. So
Always.
you play to win the game. Shout out Herm Edwards.
Let's move on to the AFC South matchup that I thought was going to be a lot more interesting, but kind of turned out to not be. The Titans beat the Colts 45-26.
Just when we're jumping on the Colts bandwagon,
They disappoint.
Love. We're talking about they're the best team in the AFC South. We're giving Philip Rivers all this love. They're coming off big wins. They beat the Titans at home, on their turf. They take care of the Green Bay Packers. We're giving them all this love, and then what do they come out and do? Lose 45-26.
I think that we were talking about the Titans' kind of woes. I think they're tackling those woes now, and I think they're coming back.
They're coming on, and so yeah, so the Colts didn't have Jonathan Taylor. I think they missed him in this game because they weren't able to run the ball. Look, Derrick Henry, I don't. Is there a team that relies more on? I know there are teams that run the ball, but is there a team that relies more on a single running back or a single player to run their offense through, or their team through? Because it's not just the offense with the running back. Their passing game is entirely dependent on the running game.
Yeah,
So
Derrick Henry really opened. Like, he has to. If he's having a good day, the team is having a good day.
he's not split, and he's been doing it for weeks. He's not splitting carries. He had 27 carries on the day. He is an old school running back, and look, I know this day and age that quarterbacks win MVP, and I have no beef with that. But I almost this was a game where I looked at Derrick Henry and thought you could make an argument that he should be the MVP. He certainly is the MVP for the Tennessee Titans.
Honestly, if there was if with the way the quarterback play has been this year, if there wasn't a certain guy on the Chiefs right now, I honestly would say Derrick Henry is the front runner for
They give
MVP.
him 25 plus carries every week. He's gone over 100 yards 7 games out of 12. He's gotten 25 carries, 25 plus carries, just 3 games. No, 5 games out of 12, which is still pretty like a lot for today's NFL.
Mm-hmm.
He is the Tennessee Titans, and if you give the Tennessee Titans a lead, like it's over. It's over. You have to force them to play from behind because you can't. You're not going to stop Derrick Henry. You're just not.
No, he's too big of a boy. And also when Derrick Henry gets going, and with the receivers that the Tennessee Titans have in A.J. Brown and Corey Davis, that's just too much.
We forget about Corey Davis with A.J. Brown taking all the headlines, but Corey Davis has kind of contributed today as well. A.J. Brown, Sam, how many times is A.J. Brown going to take a slant to the house and outrun the entire friggin' defense?
He is Julio Jones.
He did it again. He's Julio Jones, Odell Beckham, whoever. He did it again. I mean, he is just ridiculous after the catch. I mean, time and time again, he takes to the house. And then the passing game again, just 13-22 for Tannehill. But this is who they are. They're a team that relies on the run game. They do it old school, old fashioned, and but it's kind of working for them, Sam. I mean,
It absolutely is.
It's not like this was a 13-10 win. They put up 45 points on
The number one defense in the league.
Now, granted, they were without DeForest Buckner, and I think they really, really miss him.
Yeah.
But, this is a team that all of a sudden is finding their stride late in the season and will be dangerous in the playoffs if they continue to play.
8-3, and to make a push like this, that's huge for these guys.
Yep, and it now puts them in charge of the AFC South.
Easily does.
Great win for them. I don't have a ton of the Colts here. I think I think this was a battle for supremacy in the AFC South, and they lost.
They lost it. I mean, they let Jacoby Brissett had 2 rushing touchdowns on the day for them.
Yeah. Everyone's gonna dunk. I'm not gonna dunk on Philip Rivers. He didn't play great at it. He is who he is. We talked about it. We don't need to. He's a bridge. We don't need to dwell on that anymore. I don't think.
One of the things I will mention, though, when the Colts tried an onside kick, AJ Brown did take it to the house.
Yeah, these onside kicks are getting harder and harder. They went with the high bounce, which is something that I still like the high bounce. I still think it's the textbook way to do onside kicks, but it's getting harder and harder. You can see why teams are going away from it because without the run up, it's just if you have a guy that's going to play the ball, it's just So yeah, AJ Brown, if you didn't see the onside kick, he takes this kick and he catches it in the air and just sprints to the end zone. No
He just
hesitation,
runs it. He goes all the way.
no hesitation whatsoever. That's I think the Falcons hands team should take notes. That's how you attack an onside
I
kick.
think the Falcons should become the Titans. The Titans
Yeah,
know what they're doing.
that is how you attack an onside kick. And just another note here, Rigoberto Sanchez will be getting a cancerous tumor removed, and so he will be gone from the team for a while. I saw that a Hot Rod was handling the kickoffs today.
Mm-hmm.
So I wondered if something was up. I like Hot. I think Hot Rod's a really good kickoff specialist. They just haven't, they had Rigo Sanchez doing it when Vinatieri was here, so they just kept him on it. But it'll be no problem for him. But best wishes to Rigo and hopefully he has a quick recovery with that.
Hopefully he'll be good. All right. So why don't we move to one of the closer games of the day? The Panthers and the Vikings, where the Vikings actually won 28-27.
Yes, they did. Hold on, I just pressed on the wrong game by accident.
That's fine. So while you're doing that, I mean, it was a solid game. Teddy Bridgewater had a bit of issues.
A little rusty. A little rusty.
He was a little rusty. He had to take a week off for PJ Walker because he was hurt. Teddy did get hit actually pretty hard and had a bit of a scare during that.
I missed that. Did he?
He did. Yeah, he had an arm injury when he was spiking the ball in the fourth quarter. So that's a little scary. Curtis Samuel, by the way, he had an amazing deep ball that he caught from Teddy.
Yeah, excuse me for get my bottle right here. For everything we've been saying about Matt Rule and this Carolina team and what a good job he's done, and he's done a great job. Teddy's done a great job. They've struggled to close out games in the fourth quarter, and it was more the same here. I mean, they had a lead in this game and they gave it up. They let Kirk Cousins go down the field with like less than 2 minutes left in the game. And that's kind of been a story for this one this year. They've struggled to close, and
yeah, definitely. Joey Sly, unfortunately, he did go 2 for 4, and I feel like he missed that big one, which was a 54-yarder, but he missed another one during that game as well, which I thought was huge for the Panthers. Like Joey Sly, he's a really good kicker, and those misses he had were just kind of rough.
They were, and he had a miss. He had a game-winning miss against the Saints last year. Joey Sly. I meant to mention Joey Sly last week because we knew he was on the quest for the 65-plus yard field goal, and he hit one way straight down the middle last week from 56. So 54 is absolutely in his range, but just didn't have the accuracy in this one.
And I think Matt Rule is trying to get Joey Sly that record at this point. I think that's what they're aiming for. I feel like he comes out for these really long kicks.
He's certainly capable of it. I mean,
he is.
He's certainly capable of it, but you have to be careful because when you give a kicker too many long kicks, it can mess with their confidence. Because those aren't gimmies. Those are like you're probably going to miss from 60.
You got to take your time. Like right. I know Young Hoi Koo, like he's usually drilling those, but like that they try not to do it too much.
Well, I meant to give a shout out to Young Hoi Koo. That's one thing I forgot. He continues to be perfect for the Falcons. But yeah, early in Greg Zuerlein's career, I don't know if you remember when Jeff Fisher was the head coach, they were trotting him out for like 65 yarders. Like
yeah, I do remember that actually.
And there were years he would miss like 12 to 15 kicks, and everyone was like, "Oh, Greg Zuerlein's not that good," but it screws with your confidence. So yeah, but yeah, they got to learn how to close the Panthers and the Vikings. Kirk Cousins looked good. So
the one thing, the only real issue that I see with the Vikings coming up now, Dalvin Cook, he got hurt.
Yeah, he's had trouble staying healthy. It seems, hasn't he?
Yeah, so if Dalvin Cook is gonna be the Derrick Henry of this team, they got to figure a way to not get him hurt so much.
And it's tough because there are not a lot of running backs that can carry as many times. They can be the guy and stay healthy.
I know. So unfortunately, you got to find like those big tanks. Like honestly, I think Derrick Henry is kind of a better Jerome Bettis.
I like that comparison. I do, and I think it's if anything that's maybe the most impressive thing about Henry has been he's been able to, at least this year, he's been able to stay healthy.
Yeah, so like unfortunately, like Dalvin Cook, they want him to be that guy, but He's not really a muscle back. He's more of an elusive back.
And they're in a tough situation, the Vikings, because they you know they don't have a quarterback that is capable of transcending the team, winning the game all on his own if the running game's not working. But they're a good enough team to win some games. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to win games. And again, they're stuck in 7-9 territory, which is kind of where you don't want to be if you're an NFL team because you're
Yeah.
not bad enough to get a good draft pick, but you're not good enough to have any meaningful success. So and they're kind of on the books for Kirk Cousins for a few years now. So this is kind of who they are, unfortunately.
Yeah, they're stuck with a guy who couldn't really win on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, exactly. So, and he just, I mean, I was all on the Kirk Cousins train last year, but he just his starts, and again, maybe it would have something to do with Gary Kubiak, but his starts of the year was just really bad, and he's so limited in terms of mobility. You have to be running this play action offense with him, and
They really do. And you know what?
when the
They're turning it
great,
around,
but
and with the Bears being the Bears, like the Vikings are going to lock up the second spot in the NFC North.
are they going to get a playoff spot here? You think?
Phew.
How
The
about that?
they might because the Rams are definitely taking a bit of a fall.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I mean, two bad teams here. I don't have a ton more on this one. We can move on.
Alrighty. The next game that I want to talk about, it was I feel like a sloppy game, but still a good one. The Cardinals and the Patriots, where the Patriots won 20-17.
Oh god damn it, I pressed the wrong game again. Yeah, so this is a game like I wanted to. The Patriots, they're kind of frustrating because I wanted to pick them last week because normally it's like at Foxborough, you have sort of a quarterback who's talented but does one thing really well, which is run the ball, and you think Belichick would shut that down and kind of shut down the high flying offense. But the Patriots are just coming off a loss to the Houston Texans, so I was like, I can't trust them. The Cardinals are more talented, but they do. I mean, this was a sloppy game. Both offenses were really bad in this game.
Cam Newton only went 9 of 18 for 84 yards.
And I've been defending Cam Newton, but this was as bad a performance as you can get on both sides, really. I saw Mike Tanier put in his summary that the Foxborough yips for opposing teams and young head coaches are still real, and I believe that in this one. I think Kingsbury played it pretty conservatively.
It definitely showed. Like Kyler Murray had no touchdowns, only an interception.
Yeah.
The big thing I feel like that also helped this Patriots team was I don't know if you saw it. Right before halftime, they shut Kenyon Drake out of the end zone.
I did see it, and they did a good job on Kenyon Drake and the Cardinals, for as much as they get, the perception is that they're an air raid, high flying offense. They want to give it to Kenyon. I mean, Kenyon Drake had 22 carries today.
Yeah,
so
they want to give him the ball.
They want it to be balanced, absolutely.
Yeah, and you know what? DeAndre Hopkins had 5 for 55, and Stephon Gilmore was really on him today.
Yeah, so it continues to be a bit week to week for DeAndre Hopkins and a bit week to week for this Cardinals offense after, we were just, gushing over them a few weeks ago when their wins over the Bills and their wins over the Seahawks. They're now back to 6-5. They're almost at 500 on the season. And you also wonder how much, I mentioned, are they a dome team? This certainly doesn't put those
Yeah, they just went outside and lost again because they lost to the Seahawks outside.
Yeah, 2 weeks in a row, subpar performance on offense. But I will say that, again, for the second or third time this year, Kyler Murray gets beat by his kicker, who seems to be having a problem with clutch field goals. And I think
I think that kicker is Zane Gonzalez.
Zane Gonzalez, yeah. If you're Cliff Kingsbury, you have to play for touchdowns now when it's late in the game.
I was gonna say Zane Gonzalez also was having issues when he was in Cleveland. So
Cleveland, yeah, he got issues in Cleveland. He's been better in Arizona than he has in Cleveland, but he's on these clutch kick.
Yeah.
A former kicker actually. Chandler Catanzaro at Arizona also struggled with clutch kicks. Some kickers don't have the clutch gene. I mean,
I was gonna say Younghoe Koo when he was with the Patriots and the Chargers. I didn't realize he was with both those teams, but I feel like you just need to find the right team, I guess, for you.
Yeah, I mean I think it's different. The thing about Koo is he was so young that
he could develop still.
Yeah, he didn't have enough of a repertoire that it was who he was. I think he did what was good is that expectations were low and he took time off and got better, which is what usually happens for most kickers. And I think that could happen for Roberto Aguayo if he wasn't a second round pick and expectations were so high, but that's a different conversation. But Kyler Murray, he gets screwed by his kicker here, and then a late roughing call on Cam Newton puts the Patriots rather in field goal range. What did you think of that call, Sam?
I did not think that was the right call.
I didn't love it.
He was still in bounds when he got hit. That what bothered me.
he was running, he was
to
past the
some
first down, so
kicker
you got to
days.
make a
What,
hit
what
on
do you
him.
have going?
Like, I know it's a big hit, but he's a running quarterback. You got to make that hit. So I didn't love the call either, but that's
No,
the way.
he was inbounds too. That bothered me.
You don't get
By
all
the
the
way,
calls.
Zane Gonzalez is only 25.
Right, but he's like, it's not like, like what I meant by young Riku is he only played for like 2 games on the Cardinals, and then he didn't play on any games for the Patriots. So like, I
No,
feel
I
like,
get what you're saying.
yeah. But Zane Gonzalez is our age. Interesting. I don't think I'd make that kick either. So understandable. But yeah. So they get that call, and Nick Folk wraps it up, and Patriots. I don't really know what to make of them right now. I mean, Damian Harris is
They're in the playoff hunt now again, but I really don't see them making it.
again, third team in a row winning ugly. They're winning ugly. I mean,
A win is
just,
a win for the Patriots.
and we'll see what their plan is moving forward. I think that this is obviously without Tom Brady and with some of the attrition they've had over the years and poor drafts they've had. This is a transition year and was going to be, and I think they're doing okay considering it's a transition year. I don't, and we'll see. They don't really have an identity right now. We know Cam Newton's just a bridge, so we'll see when they want to who they're going to be once they rebuild the team, once they get their quarterback of the future and get their drafts moving forward.
It will be interesting.
Yeah.
All right, why don't we move on to their AFC East brethren in the Dolphins and the Jets?
Yeah, the Dolphins and the Jets.
We can keep this brief. Game was ugly. Jets suck. All right, let's talk about the Dolphins for the rest of the time.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Darnold comes back. He has his receivers healthy, but he still doesn't look good. And I think if it wasn't sealed already, this kind of seals the fate for Sam Darnold as a New York Jet. I think they're going to be taking Trevor Lawrence now. I don't.
They're going to be taking Lawrence, but if they keep Gase, then there's no point picking Trevor Lawrence.
It's over keep Gase, but they, and apparently didn't Gase lied about calling the plays at the podium? Like he took play calling back, and then he said he didn't. Did you see that?
No, I did not, because I try not to follow the Jets anymore.
Yeah, bottom line, Gase is a freaking nutcase. He's not just a bad coach; he's actually a nutcase, and I don't think he should ever get another coaching gig in the league.
He's not getting another coaching gig after this. Look at Hugh Jackson; he didn't get anything after this either.
Yeah, putting that aside, and he continues to feed Frank Gore even when the game is like out of reach. I know Frank Gore is good, but like 18 carries for like he's more again. He just they get out, or the opposing team rather gets out to a lead, and they just kind of give up. It's same old Jets, and it's embarrassing. Yeah, the Dolphins. I mean, Fitzpatrick was okay. He wasn't great, but he was okay. No Kalen Balaj this week. It was DeAndre Washington and Matt Breida.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Laird had a fumble, so on his only carry. Devontae Parker had a balled out. He had 8 receptions.
119 yards for his receptions.
Again, another ugly win, but keeps them in the hunt for the playoffs, and maybe he'll come back soon. And they do what they need to do.
I really hope Frank Gore can play on a winning team for one of these times.
Yeah.
It would be nice to see.
Me too.
So we're gonna go from winless to 1 win. We have the Browns beating the Jaguars 27-25. The Jaguars are now officially eliminated from the playoffs.
And I think they fired did they fire their general manager?
They fired no one yet.
Oh, I thought they fired their general manager, but not their head coach.
So one of the things here, they take out Jake Luton, put in Mike Glennon, and Mike Glennon did all right for what he had around him.
I mean, this is how like teams are. I thought it was a COVID thing, but was it anyway?
They took out Luton because he wasn't working out anymore.
Well, my roommates were playing Red Zone, and I because McGlennon has been retired, and they came up. I said it's McGlennon, and they said I don't know who that is. I was like, oh, he was a starter like a long time ago.
He was supposed to be the franchise savior for the Buccaneers.
For the Bucks and Greg Schiano, who otherwise known as Mr. Attack the Kneel Down. Yeah, Glennon did all right.
Schiano was an idiot.
I don't think it helps the stock of Gardner Minshew that
No, Minshew and Luton definitely are getting screwed here.
That like they've been just as good with Glennon and in one game with Luton. So with the kind of draft position they have, I'd expect them to take a quarterback. They're probably in line for Justin Fields here, right?
Yeah, they're gonna probably be the second pick.
So you'll have Sam Darnold, you'll have Dwayne Haskins free, you'll have Minshew free. The quarterback carousel is going to spin.
It is. But one of the things I will say though is this is kind of a scary game for the Browns. I feel like because the Browns are 8-3, and this was a game that honestly I feel like they needed to really like kind of win this game. They needed to make this a statement win that they could beat up the weak teams. But that clearly didn't show here.
Well, I think it wasn't quite as close to the final score because they were up 27-19 in the fourth quarter. And
Yeah, but like I feel like for them, like, yeah, 27-19, not that close, but it should have definitely kind of been a little like this Cleveland Browns team is way too dangerous to be like, a 2-score game against this Jaguars.
yeah, and I think that's who they are. I mean, they're way better than they've been at any point in this decade, right? Like, not at any point, but for most of it.
For
Like,
most.
they're good enough to take care of the bad teams, and they're gonna go to Tennessee, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh, and probably lose all those games.
They
Because
might beat Baltimore if Lamar Jackson's still out.
Lamar, yeah, we don't know what's happening there. Last night on the Jags, James Robinson had 22 carries for 128 yards and a touch, so at least something positive.
They're getting something good out of James Robinson, who is an undrafted free rookie.
But yeah, for the Browns, I mean, this is their formula. We run the football. They have one of the best, maybe the best two-headed running back monster in Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. They split the carries between those two guys, and both those guys end up being productive. They had over 200 yards rushing on the day,
And Jarvis Landry had a great day receiving too.
and Baker Mayfield's a game manager at this point. I mean, they do a lot of play action, they do a lot of rollouts, and they're not asking him to do a lot, but it's good coaching.
He did have a lot of missed passes though. He had one of his receivers wide open by himself in the end zone, and he overthrew him.
Yeah, it's still certainly an up and down year for him. I don't think he's playing great football. I mean, look, if I were to guess, I would say his QBR is probably right in the middle, average to below average. I'll just look it up real quickly, but yeah, I mean this is who they are. They're a run first team, and they're really not asking Baker Mayfield to do a whole lot. But hey, it's working for them. They're 8-3, and we'll see. Unfortunately they've been blown out by the Ravens and Steelers. So when you look at these next few games, it's not going to be. Not even can they win, but can they keep it closer, right? Because again, they're a good team, but the AFC North, unfortunately they're the third best team in the AFC North because they have two AFC superpowers ahead of them. So yeah, Baker Mayfield is 16th in QBR, so he's literally smack dab in the middle.
Yeah,
So
definitely going to be rough for those guys.
That checks out, but again, they have an identity, Sam. They're running the football well, and they're winning games. So I think if you're a Browns fan, it's definitely like you're definitely happy because it's definitely better than you've been for like most of the decade.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll see how it goes. They're gonna have a rough road ahead.
Yeah. Now it's gonna get tough for them.
Alrighty, we're gonna move on to those 4 o'clock games. Saints and Broncos.
Yeah. So I will make a confession. This is the one. I watched all the highlights this morning. Just 'cause I've been busy with others. This is the one highlight outside of the games I did watch. This is the one highlight I did not watch because I could not get it in me to watch a game where there were 10 total completions between both teams.
This was a really, really bad game.
This was like the Army Navy. This was like an Army Navy game, right? I mean, this was like wild. So poor Kendall Hinton is relegated from upgraded from wide receiver to quarterback.
Well, he was also on the practice squad. All right, but before we get into this,
yeah,
so Kendall Hilton was a practice squad wide receiver, and on Saturday at like 8 o'clock, they called him up, said, "Hey, our quarterbacks are fucking morons. Get over here. You got to play quarterback."
Yeah. He didn't complete a pass till the third quarter. He only had one completion on the day on 9 attempts. It's just all their quarterbacks had COVID. Literally every. I mean, it
was Jeff Ruprian was tested positive for COVID. Drew Lock and Blake Bortles are hanging around him, not wearing a mask.
Yeah.
And they're all on the COVID list. And they basically just screwed their team out of like they could have had a solid game against the Saints.
Yeah.
And they now screwed themselves. And honestly, if this is really what happens, and if I'm the Broncos, Drew Lock has not been playing well for me. This might be it for him after screwing you like this. Blake Bortles is definitely out the door after this because he was a third-string quarterback, and he shouldn't, like, why are you guys hanging around each other, like, completely oblivious to the protocols of COVID for the NFL?
Yeah. And this, honestly, Sam, the Saints weren't much different in terms of passing output. I mean, they only had 9 completions.
They were 9 of 16. Like, But like they are basically going off of Drew Brees' hurt, and Taysom Hill is doing what he's supposed to be doing, which is he's still a Swiss Army knife who can somewhat pass. He's not going to be passing 30 times a game.
Yeah, it's really weird to watch the Saints run like QB sweeps when you're used to seeing Drew Brees, but that's what they're doing, and they just need to. They're 9-2, so they just need to hold down the ship till Brees gets back. Uh, I want to say they're playing better on defense, although how can you really evaluate against Kendall Hinton?
You're playing against a practice squad wide receiver. Now, this is also like sorry if I'm cutting you off a lot because this kind of makes me a little upset that the Denver Broncos are without their quarterbacks, but the NFL couldn't move this game over to Tuesday so they could sign a quarterback and get them up to speed. While you have the fucking Ravens and the Steelers, who were supposed to play on Thursday, now postponed 3 times after just losing one of their quarterbacks.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I was about to say that. I mean, it's a clear double standard here. The NFL has bent over backwards for the Baltimore Ravens to accommodate them. It's very clear favoritism.
Easily.
The Baltimore Ravens weren't following protocol either, and so I really when people ask why did they do this for the Ravens and not the Broncos, the answer is very simple to me. It's that the Ravens are a playoff team with a star quarterback who's like one of the more popular players.
Like Lamar Jackson, Madden cover athlete. He's probably one of the. Everyone wants to be like Lamar right now.
Yeah, no, it's and the Broncos are already out of the playoffs, and no one cares about them. So who cares if they play a game with no quarterbacks? That's all it is, and it's definitely not right, but
it's not because you basically gave a free win to the Saints when maybe they lost this one if they actually had a quarterback.
Yeah. And I think if the NFL really does, I almost feel silly like saying what the NFL should do because we know they're stubborn, they're not going to do any of this. But if the NFL, the first thing they should do is add an extra bye week. But the second thing they should do is if teams keep violating protocol on COVID, they should just forfeit games. I mean, right? I mean, if you brought it on yourself, then why are we even doing that?
Well, one of the things they've done is the Saints got fined $500,000. And lost a 7th-round pick. The Patriots got fined $350,000.
I know the Gruden's team got fined a ton.
Gruden's getting fined. Like all they're doing is handing out fines. They're not really doing anything else.
Yeah. So.
But I feel like that you just screwed the Broncos out of all right. Drew Lock and Blake Bortles shot themselves in the foot basically because they basically just lost an opportunity to prove why they should be the starting guy.
Right.
They screwed out any free agent quarterback who might want to try to, compete in the league and be a quarterback by not letting him come on for the Denver Broncos.
Right.
You screw Kendall Hinton because he's trying to make his own career here, and he gets thrust into a shit situation. And hopefully the Broncos give him more opportunities for, essentially just stepping up and trying to salvage their situation for them. I really hope he gets another opportunity to prove that he should be on an NFL team.
Yeah, I agree. It's screwing. It's a lot of screwing.
Honestly, all right, look. When it comes to the Broncos quarterbacks themselves, they've screwed themselves. That is 100% their fault.
Yeah.
But the NFL is now ruining an opportunity for other players to try to get in there.
We're not following protocol either, and they are not being punished for it. So let's again, players, let's be smart. And then NFL, let's not be dumb, my guy. I don't know.
Yeah, well, one of the things that just came out was all 3 quarterbacks tested negative for COVID, so they will be returning to the team on Wednesday.
Okay, well, that's good. But it's tough, Sam. I mean, I feel like the attitude here is if you get COVID, you get through it. But I need to remind people that this is a serious disease, and
it's very serious, and they should treat it seriously. Now, the one thing I will say, if I am the Broncos and your quarterbacks come back Wednesday, they should absolutely not be playing this coming weekend. I would let Kendall Hinton take all the snaps this week, let him be first-team quarterback, and give him a real opportunity here.
Yeah, but he's not really a quarterback.
He actually was a quarterback in college. He was a quarterback in high school, and he really wanted to be on an NFL team and switched to wide receiver.
Yeah.
So he was a quarterback. So honestly, I'd want to give him a chance. He comes in and does what he's supposed to do. Give him a real opportunity.
The problem, though, Sam, is I feel, first of all, he's buried on the depth chart, but second of all,
easily buried.
You have to. I feel like they're in a situation where they're trying to evaluate if Drew Lock is the guy or not, and because they have
Honestly, if I'm the Broncos and my evaluation was set when he broke protocol like that, I would have said no. You're
yeah
done.
yeah well
That I don't
I
care
hear you.
what he's doing on the field. If he's not gonna follow the rules, he's out.
I hear you, but
I'm
you know
sorry. I get that we're still evaluating his young talent, but he couldn't stay healthy. He literally all he had to do was not be near him with a or have a mask on and stay safe, and he couldn't do that, and then he fails he fails the team.
yeah I hear you.
I'm
It's
sorry, but
pretty
that's
bad.
my evaluation. You screw the team. You screwed it right there.
Yeah, for sure.
Alrighty, so
I'm
that
I'm trying to get to pull down for like what the Ravens did because I've been reading that what they did was worse than what the Broncos did, but I
yeah, the
don't.
Ravens. We could get to those later, but let's just try to finish the games real quick.
Okay, yeah.
49ers Rams. This Rams team to lose to a 49ers team that's injured like that, that's pretty scary.
Well, I feel like all the NFC West teams are average right now, and any of them could beat any of them. It's sort of like the Pac-12 a bit right now. Like
Yeah,
anyone,
definitely. Like the Seahawks are great on offense, bad defense. The 49ers are just really well coached.
yeah,
The
right, yeah.
Rams are very streaky.
And this is a rivalry and one that Kyle Shanahan's gotten the better of McVay here. So
Oh
anything could
yeah.
happen with a division rivalry. And they got Mostert back in this game.
Oh, having Mostert was a huge plus.
Huge for them. He's been a Ram killer. I'm Daryl Henderson. The running back rotation continues. Henderson didn't do much today, but Cam Akers did have a long run, which was good to see. Although it's hard to evaluate if a running back is good when they get one long run because sometimes you just get a hole. But Robbie Gould actually uncharacteristically missed a couple, but did
He ended up winning the clutch one.
got the one that yeah
He got the one that mattered, so you can't be too upset with him. Wait, no, he was only 3 or 4. He only missed one.
Oh, I thought he missed two. Maybe it was an extra point, or maybe I'm just hallucinating.
No, 2 for 2 on extra points. I don't know. He hit. He was
Oh,
hitting.
okay. So it's just one miss. That's fair.
Yeah.
So he hits the game winner, 3 or 4 there. Yeah. So I'm just this Rams offense just doesn't look that good, and I really I really am starting to sour on Jared Goff here. I mean, I really. I mean,
Everyone seems to be like, honestly, Jared Goff, I feel like is look, he had a solid year. He's definitely falling off a cliff right now. Like he made his money and that might be it for him.
doesn't play well under pressure. Is not good at reading the defenses. Misses open guys. I mean, he doesn't look that good, and unfortunately, the Rams are kind of in a similar situation as the Vikings with Kirk Cousins, right? It's
They're
like
stuck with him now.
yeah, they're like sort of that middling 7-9, 9-7 team, and they paid their quarterback, and they're kind of stuck with him, and he's not great. But this offense outside of that start where against NFC East teams and that one league comeback almost come back against the Bills, it hasn't looked good. And
I mean, they beat the Buccaneers, but I feel like Tom Brady handed them that win.
yeah, Tom Brady handed that game to them, and Jared Goff almost. They tried to lose that game, Jared, with that late.
Goff almost handed it right back.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't think it's I don't think it's on Sean McVay. I think
It's not. Honestly, I feel like Jared Goff is having issues.
I feel like it's kind of on Jared Goff here. And
Alright.
again, it's kind of in salary cap held from the Super Bowl hangover. So,
Yeah, they're screwed.
but so good win for that. But they don't feel like a 7-3 team here, or what are they 7-4?
7-4.
Well, it's still a solid record. They don't really.
It's
feel
solid, but
like
I feel like they're not a 7-4 team. You're right.
no, and they go to Tennessee next. Oh no, I'm still looking at the Browns schedule. I was like, that was
No, the Rams are where are they? I got it written down here. Where'd they
they're going to
go?
Arizona.
They're playing the Cardinals.
Yeah, that's a good matchup, but that's no easy out either. Then
No, that's gonna be a rough one.
so they're just one of these middling teams. It's okay. They're okay. They're not awful, but they're not really good. I don't know. It is weird that they lost to the Niners. I'm just gonna chalk that up to division rivalry, and the Niners have their number.
Sorry, hold on. Dog needs to. She was whining. Yeah, you know what? They're not a. They're probably the weakest 7-4 team I've seen.
Yeah.
All right, so why don't we move on to the Chiefs and the Buccaneers?
Game of the coming in, it was the game of the
Coming in, the Chiefs. All right, first of all, Tyreek Hill had like 200 yards in the first quarter.
Tyreek Hill was freaking ridiculous. I mean, it was bombs away, and for some reason, uh, Todd Bowles kept putting him in single coverage. You can't run with this guy.
No, he's way too quick. Like again, if Patrick Mahomes wasn't in the league, Derrick Henry I think would be front runner. But because Patrick Mahomes is in the league, he's probably going to get his second MVP this year.
It was bombs away for these two. I mean, the first possession they got too cute in the red zone and settled for a field goal, but after that it was just a
They
Tyreek
they
Hill.
they went kicking. Like the Buccaneers, they almost came back, but the Chiefs were just too much.
Well, I think they went up 17-0 pretty early.
They did
Um,
first quarter.
yeah, and then I went to sleep, and I assumed, Sam. I was actually surprised it was this close because I assumed when I woke up it would just be like,
Over.
judging on the way it started, you almost say the Chiefs had a bad game because of like they were on pace for like 60 points and like over 1,000 yards of offense, considering like the way they started. I mean, it looked like this was about to get really ugly, and I was surprised that it only ended up being a 27-24 game. But yeah, Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill are when they're on their game,
They're on. Like, look, Brady did what Brady could do. Like he tried to come back. He did throw 2 interceptions, 3 touchdowns though on the day. Just you know what? He tried to make a late game comeback, but you can't really do that against the Chiefs.
yeah. So what was I going to say? So yeah, and Patrick Mahomes, he's the front runner for the MVP right now. They're the front run. They're the Super Bowl favorite right now. 10-1 on the year. They're getting better. And they God, I keep losing my train of thought. God damn it. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. You say something.
Okay, I'll say something. So yeah, this Chiefs team though, like honestly, I feel like they are a better team than the undefeated Steelers.
Oh, I totally agree. I think okay, I remember what I was gonna say. I think they're the Super Bowl favorite. And like one thing about Patrick Mahomes that like Scott Kazmar on Twitter pointed out that I had never thought about is that like he actually throws balls further. He throws for more yards than he actually gets credit for in the stats because so many of his passes he backpedals like 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage. And that and the but the distance that's counted in the yardage is only like counted from the line of scrimmage. So when you consider how much he backpedals, he actually like is throwing like sometimes like there are plays that it will go as a 3 yard touchdown. It's actually like a 10 yard touchdown.
Yeah,
So
Patrick Mahomes, he's it doesn't matter what he's doing honestly. Like people just can't stop him. Like he knows how to sling the ball and he can run.
and no one else can make those kind like no one else can backpedal and make the throws. It's sort of like Madden. Madden when you need to buy time, you just keep backpedaling. Like you can't really do that in the league because no one else has the vision or arm talent to be able to make those throws, but he does. He just
He
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 plays.
he is a Madden character.
It's sort of if you took peak Jay Cutler and like took away the turnovers and like Jay Cutler had like one game a year where he was like amazing. It's like if
You got
you
to take Jay Cutler and give him passion for the game.
yeah, if you took peak Jay Cutler, took away the turnovers, and made peak Jay Cutler play every single week, that's Patrick Mahomes. I mean, it's just unbelievable what they're able to do throwing the football. And again, the running game has sort of faded in recent weeks, and it's been all the passing game, which is to our
Which is
benefit.
fine. Like Patrick Mahomes is fucking killing it.
We get to watch how good they are. And they sort of fell asleep in the middle of this game, which they tend to do at times. But it doesn't really cost them in the win section because they get out to a lead and they're good at closing. Like they had a chance. The Bucks had a chance to get the ball back, but Patrick Mahomes has been really good in the 4 minute drill at just making. And that's the thing about Patrick Mahomes is he can play any. He doesn't really have a weakness. Like he can play any game you want him to play. Like he can go bombs away, but he can also when he just needs to pick up a first down and he just needs to have a 10 yard out route and move the chains. He can do that too. It's not like he's like Brett Favre where like every throw has to be 80 yards down the field. Brett Favre was. They have similarities, but like that was one of the things that stopped Brett Favre from being more of a clutch quarterback is he was too aggressive, and when he needed to just take the check down, he couldn't do that. Mahomes can do that. So it feels like piling on when you praise Mahomes, but I don't, and people are going to start saying he's overrated just because they don't like the fact that he's being praised so much. But when you watch him play, he's really not, and you really can't say enough good things about him. He's just that good, and they have Le'Veon Bell in the mix, and he's a good compliment, right? Like he understands he's not going to be the bell cow anymore. But when they come in and they need him to make a play, he's good. Tyreek Hill had 13 receptions for 269 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Mahomes was 32 or 37 or 49 for 462 yards and 3 touchdowns. These are Madden numbers. I mean, these are straight out of the video game. The Bucks defense hasn't been as good in recent weeks. The Bucks look like a wild card team at best right now. Here's what I'll say about the Bucks and about their offense because Tony Romo was giving Tom Brady way too much credit for generally not playing well. But I think he did hit on a few good points about the mesh between Bruce Arians and Tom Brady, and it was different in this game because things got out of hand quickly and they had to throw it. But I think it's been a bit of a rough marriage so far, not in terms of personality or anything, but just in terms of scheme. And I talked about this a bit last week, and I'll just touch on it a bit more here. I think when Brady came to Tampa to pair with Bruce Arians, Bruce Arians is a great coach, and he's coached some great quarterbacks to some really great seasons and helped them develop. But what Bruce Arians does is he throws the football down the field. He throws deep. He goes empty backfield and throws deep, and he tends to expose his quarterbacks to a lot of hits, especially with a Tampa Bay offensive line that's struggling. When you have a 40-plus-year-old quarterback, those guys tend not to like to get hit. And and I wondered whether this marriage would work because Tom Brady has not been a deep ball thrower throughout his career. He's been a check down guy. He's been a move the chains guy. It hasn't been his game. And a lot of people kind of discounted that and say he'll adjust. He hasn't really adjusted that much. And it seems like schematically, Brady is not comfortable. He's not really in a rhythm. And I just think, at this point, when you bring in a quarterback this old, you have to do what they're comfortable with. And we saw it. I think a great comparison is Denver. We saw it with Peyton Manning, where Mike McCoy early on was trying to kind of meld Peyton's offense with his offense, and they'd go down 21 something and a half. Remember when they played the Falcons? This happened in Peyton's first year, and then they'd mount a big comeback when Peyton would go no huddle, and they eventually realized, we just have to let Peyton go no huddle because that's what he does best, and that's when he started his kind of 2-year MVP run. And then Gary Kubiak came in, and there was a lot of talk. What's going to happen with Peyton running the Gary Kubiak offense? And they started the season doing that, and Peyton looked terrible. And then he got healthy, and they did a bit of a hybrid, and he looked okay. But it was really more about the defense than it was about Peyton looking good in the Kubiak offense. So I think that's a great example this year. I think it's a little late in Brady's career. He's not 2017 Brady. Remember that year they brought in Brandon Cooks and Chris Hogan, and he was throwing a lot of deep balls, and he threw for 500 yards in the Super Bowl loss against the Eagles. That's not who he is anymore. I think he's more of a check down quarterback, and I don't think you can ask him to be something different. So I think Bruce Arians has to do some soul searching here, do a little more motion, find the things that not a motion like in offense. Find the things that Tom Brady likes. Do some more quick play action, not the deep play action, and just try to kind of adjust his offense a little bit. And it's hard because Bruce Arians, it's not like he just wants to throw the football down the field, because he's reckless or whatever. Like, and I read his book. This is part of his philosophy, and he says I'm not all deep balls on every play. I do checkdowns too, but his philosophy is that you win in the NFL by creating big plays, and that seems cliche. But you know what? There are a lot of coaches who wouldn't believe that. There are a lot of coaches who would say, you know what, you win the NFL by protecting the football and not turning it over. That's not what Bruce Arians believes. Bruce Arians believes you have to win by creating big plays, and he gives his quarterback the green light on any play. It doesn't matter what the play call is. He says if you have single coverage, take the deep shot. But unfortunately, at this point in Brady's career, that's really not who he is, and it's not a receiver's problem. He has good receivers, but he's kind of putting it all on Brady to be what Bruce Arians' past quarterbacks have been. And Brady is not Ben Roethlisberger. He's not Carson Palmer, and he's not Andrew Luck. Those guys were more suited for this Bruce Arians system. I'm not saying those guys are better than Brady, but they're better at Brady at the deep ball and at taking hits and throwing it down the field. And I think the same with the running game, Sam, is they're so week to week with it. Ronald Jones only had 9 carries in this game. I think they're too pass heavy. I mean, I think Brady's kind of old, and I think he needs to rely on the running game at this point in his career to win. So I think they both have to take a look in the mirror. I think Brady needs to play better. I'm not putting it on Bruce Arians. I think Brady 100% needs to play better. But I think if you're going to get the most out of a 43-year-old Tom Brady, you need to adjust your offense a little bit and be a little more flexible than you've been in the past.
Definitely. The only reason why I'm not going to add more to that, you definitely hit everything, and we definitely need to get a little more movement here.
I had a lot to say there. Sorry, I know that.
That's fine. So we're going to leave it as is. I think you actually hit every point that would just needed to be hit.
Cool.
So let's talk about the shit Sunday night football game.
Yeah.
Packers beat the Bears 41-25.
The quote-unquote rivalry game. This has become one of the worst rivalries in the league in the last decade or so. I mean, this is exactly what we've come to expect from the Green Bay Packers. Just a comfortable win, solid win. One of those wins where it was just easy. It was Rodgers was just. It seemed like he was just taking his time, reading a book, having a sip of coffee, throws a touchdown pass. He wasn't even really thinking about it. It was just easy, efficient day for him. 21-29, 211, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Aaron Jones had a big day. He broke a couple. Jamal Williams had a big day. Definitely, even if it was against the Bears, I think what the Packers offense needed to get on track.
They did what needed to be done.
I'm glad to see them get the running game going because they have struggled in that area in recent weeks. Robert Tonyan continues to kind of break out a bit here. On the Bears side of the football, I was curious to see Mitch Trubisky, if only because we know what Nick Foles is, and maybe Trubisky.
Nick Foles got hurt; he was out.
Right. So maybe Trubisky will at least give you something in the running game here. But Trubisky looked like he's looked in the past. He had one pick into quadruple coverage. It looked like it actually reminded me of an old Eli Manning throw against the Packers in 2010 where he threw it into quadruple coverage. Anyway, or maybe it was a different game that season. Eli threw a lot of picks that year, so I mixed them up sometimes. Yeah, I think it's safe to say after this game that the only positives is David Montgomery did get going here. He was back. He had 103 yards and 11 carries, but again, not really running the football, though they did get out of the game early. But I think it's safe to say that the Bears quarterback of the future is not on this roster, and I think this is officially hot seat time for Matt Nagy. So
Yeah, it definitely is. I really wish this Bears team always assembles good defenses. They just need a freaking quarterback.
yeah, no, they do. And I think Matt Nagy, I don't look again his scheme. Again, it's hard to evaluate without a quarterback, but he's a little too. He's very pass heavy. He's not super formationally diverse. I don't know. I mean, I again, and we'll talk about some of these Andy Reid disciplines with I have a ton to say about Doug Peterson. We'll get to that game in a second.
I will let you cover the whole Seahawks Eagles when we get there.
But yeah, this is a team that they're 5-6, but they've played a lot worse than that. It's mostly been their defense keeping them in games. But this is kind of they're just waiting for the next quarterback and probably the next head coach too.
Yeah, they're falling out. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're done.
Yeah, they're done.
All right. So as I mentioned, I will let you take this one. Seahawks beat the Eagles 23-17. What are you thinking?
Yeah. Okay. So start with the Seahawks. It was closer than they would have liked, but the Eagles have played them well historically. So again, just one of those matchups. I think it was sort of like the Bills. In their win. Good teams don't always win pretty, but a win's a win. They did have some curious fourth down decisions that I didn't agree with in terms of play calling, but they come away with the win here. This wasn't as close as the final score. I mean, the 17 was the last touchdown was garbage time. This was, but let's talk Eagles. Let's get to the beat.
I want you to talk Eagles. You sound like you had a lot to say about it, so I'm going to let you take this whole one here.
I do, and I appreciate that. So I haven't watched really a full Eagles game this year. I mean, I think they played the 49ers. Both those teams suck. I was half in, half out of that one. I watched them play the Giants, but it's a Giants game, so I was more paying attention to the Giants. So this was really the first time I've got to take a look at Carson Wentz and the Eagles offense. And I think it was embarrassing to watch both Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson call this game. I think they were both horrible. On the side of Carson Wentz, he is. They pointed this out on the broadcast. He missed multiple guys. He missed open guys multiple times. He had one-on-one coverages that he didn't pull the trigger when he should have. He underthrew guys horribly. He had a couple deep balls that would have been touchdowns, and he either didn't throw it or underthrew it. His accuracy is all over the place. He's throwing it into the ground. When guys are wide open, and he's just regressed to a really bad level at this point. He's probably one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. And I mentioned Dan Orlovsky. Usually I don't pay attention to dumb ESPN shows, but I was just looking at Twitter, and Dan Orlovsky got really mad at Max Kellerman for saying that Carson Wentz is the worst quarterback in the league and that they should start Jalen Hurts. And I'm really mad at Dan Orlovsky for that because he was screaming out there and making a big show of it. And the fact is, he's totally wrong, and Max Kellerman was right. And at the end of the day, the Eagles, I think they should be starting Jalen Hurts. I don't think you get anything from. I think you've gotten everything. You've seen everything you need to from Carson Wentz. I think the whole team needs a boost, needs a change. Now their offensive line is Swiss cheese, and Carson Wentz has been under pressure, and he doesn't really have time to go through a couple reads. Although it doesn't help that he doesn't get rid of the ball on his first read. But at the end of the day, I just think organizationally, when you look at Jalen Hurts, like even if you don't think he should start, like not even finding a role for him, it almost reminds me of the Jets with Tim Tebow, although it's actually different because Jalen Hurts can actually throw a football. You drafted this guy in the second round, I believe, and you're talking all preseason about how you're gonna, you looked at Taysom Hill and you're gonna have all these packages for this guy. You're leaking to the press coming up to this game that you're gonna have all these packages for this guy. You put him on the field for 2 plays. It's the first time they put him on the field without Carson Wentz also on the field. 2 plays. First play, false start. Second play, he completes a pass, and it was a nice pass. It was a little out route, 6 yards. And then they take him off the field, put Carson Wentz in on third down, and get sacked. It's absurd and it's inexplicable to not, when your offense is struggling this much, to not have more of a role for Jalen Hurts. And look, Jalen Hurts was not the most polished pocket passer, but he improved a lot from where he was as a freshman in college. And he's played in big games. He played in a national championship twice. He won one, and the other one he was pulled for Tua Tagovailoa. And then he played in the playoffs again and lost to LSU, like everyone did that year. And he was a Heisman runner-up on Oklahoma. So this is a guy who's a gamer, who has big game experience, who has the intangibles, who has a positive teammates love him, has a positive effect on the team around him. We've seen the Eagles been sparked, and the whole team has played differently in the past when they've replaced Wentz for Nick Foles. I don't think it'd be great, but I think Jalen Hurts has a similar effect. I think you at least need to see what he is, because otherwise, why did you draft him in the second round if not to play him, if not to see who he is? If you think he has enough talent that he could be a future quarterback, that you draft him in the second round, it's absurd to not play him. And then the last thing I'll say here is Doug Peterson's play calling was atrocious. Again, we talked about here's a guy who in the Super Bowl and I didn't like the hire before he was in the Super Bowl. I wasn't sold on Andy Reid before then. I thought they were too pass heavy. I thought clock management was bad, but Andy Reid has totally reinvented himself as a coach since then. And Doug Peterson showed that he was a big time head coach too, with the RPOs, with what he did winning a Super Bowl with his backup quarterback. But since then, they've been so vanilla on offense. And what they do is they get in the shotgun and they have three wide receivers on the field, and they just there's very little motion, there's very little bunches, there's very little creativity in their route concepts. They just ask their guys to win one on one. Jalen Rieger cannot win one on one right now. He's not playing well. That looks like a questionable draft pick at this point. And the offense, he's just not doing a good job coaching. It's just he's not creative. He's not calling plays well, and he's not running the football. You have a quarterback who is struggling big time, and this was never a game that was out of reach. And Miles Sanders got 6 carries, and Boston Scott got 2 carries. Get under center and run the damn football. It's inexplicable to be this pass heavy and to have this little creativity when your offense is struggling as much as it is. I mean, there's no explanation for it. And Carson Wentz, I think he averaged 1.8 yards per attempt in the first half, which is the lowest in years. I think he's one of 2 quarterbacks to have both 45 sacks and 15 interceptions on a season. He had 215 yards on the day, but at least 70 of those yards were in garbage time when the game was out of reach. And then my last note on Doug Peterson is on 4th and 4, down 20-9, needing a field goal and in field goal range in the fourth quarter with less than 5 minutes left, with the quarterback who's playing terribly. He decides to eschew the field goal when you need 2 scores, so might as well get the field goal. Goes for it on 4th and down. Carson Wentz throws it directly to the safety, no receiver in sight, throws it directly to the safety. So this Eagles organization, it's been a big fall from grace from one of the more impressive Super Bowl wins we've seen. It's going in, beating the Patriots with a backup quarterback is probably the hardest thing to do. Let alone beating the Patriots with your starter and outscoring them. That was impressive. They've done nothing since then. Their starting quarterback is lost. He looks terrible. And look, and I'll let you talk in a sec because I know I'm going on here. I defended Carson Wentz for years. I get it. I love the skill set. I thought his rookie year wasn't great, but it was potential. It's a rookie year. He looked great the MVP year before Foles won it. 2018, I thought he was coming back after an ACL, but he was bad last year. And last year was when the Carson versus Dak debate was really put to bed. Because Dak had a great year last year, and Carson Wentz was given a lot of credit for running a dip and dunk offense, which is inherently a low risk offense. So of course you're going to have a lot of touchdowns, but there's a lot of yak to the tight ends. It wasn't anything impressive. And this year the wheels have just fallen off. So this is an organization that and a team like a lot of the NFC East that is just this was on a national audience. I hope it opened some eyes because it certainly opened my eyes, Sam, to how poor this quarterback and his head coach are doing right now.
You have definitely covered everything. Like I said, I let you take the whole thing there.
Thank you for letting me take that. I know.
So that was all you, buddy. So we definitely need to move on to our game picks here.
Yeah, let's do it.
So we're moving into Week 13 here. There is no Thursday night football game here, so we're going to go straight into Sunday.
All right.
I'm looking at ESPN, just so if you need to know where I'm at.
The Thursday night game was the Ravens game.
Ravens-Cowboys.
It was, yeah, and we haven't even played last week's Ravens game, so yeah.
Yep, so we'll get to that in a minute. But all right,
yeah.
We have Saints and Falcons. They're going to be in Atlanta. I'm still taking the Saints.
Well, right, you never pick it.
I don't pick the Falcons, and honestly, I've been wrong once.
No, I get it. It's a superstition thing. It's actually funny. I don't know if you I don't really watch pregame these days anymore, but back in the day, Michael Strahan, who I love the Fox NFL crew. They're fun. He would always pick the Giants, like no matter what, because it was fun. Like it didn't matter. You knew they were going to lose. Like
he's loyal to them.
And you're the opposite, so it's just funny.
They win when I don't pick them.
Yeah, no, I get it. Superstition. Well, Bud Light had that promo for years. Like it's not weird if it works, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And the reason that was so successful is because they got the psyche of NFL fans and the crazy things we believe. Anyway, I'm taking Atlanta. I again.
You're just not sold on Taysom Hill.
I'm not, and I think Atlanta, they had momentum last week. They're a disappointing team, so I'm never going to put it past Atlanta to disappoint me. But on paper,
They should win, but
They should win this one. Yeah.
Lions Bears. I think the Lions are going to come out here with their replacement head coach and beat the Bears.
They're going to be. I think they're going to be happy to get rid of Patricia. Actually, another great part of that article that I didn't talk when I was talking about Patricia is that after his first year, the players were so happy that the season was over that they were celebrating the season was over, and they were literally like mixing alcohol with like the drinks in the cafeteria because they were so happy to not have to be coached by Patricia anymore. So having said that, I will take Detroit in this one. Chicago offense has nothing, so I'll take Detroit.
We got Browns and Titans. This is going to be a huge game for the Browns, but I think the Titans will take it.
Both of these teams want to run the football. That's who they are. I think the Titans. The Titans have just been on such a roll recently. It feels like they're getting hot at the right time, and the Browns have just been. They played good football, but it's been against lesser teams, and I'm not convinced they're at the point, especially with their passing game, to succeed against the better teams. So I too am going to take the Tennessee Titans in this one.
We've got the Bengals and the Dolphins. Yeah. I think the Dolphins are going to take this one.
Yeah, I think regardless of who starts at quarterback for the Dolphins, like I said, the Bengals are, they were single-handedly held afloat by Joe Burrow, and I to win another game this year, so I'm taking the Dolphins as well.
We got Vikings and Jaguars. The Jaguars are trying to compete with the Jets on the tank off here, so I think the Vikings are going to take this one.
Yeah, I think the Vikings have been playing better football as of late, and I think the Jaguars only one win on the season, and they are on track to have. It looks like they're on track to have Justin Fields, so I'm going to take the Vikings as well.
Raiders and Jets. I think the Raiders need a bounce back win after getting absolutely raffle stomped by Falcons.
Raiders need a bounce back win. Certainly would be panic time if they lose here to the Jets. But they for most of the year, who they were against Atlanta is not who they've been for most of the year.
They're going to turn it around. John Gruden's going to get that win against the Jets.
And the New York Jets they've just given up essentially. I don't know. I think if you fire Adam Gase, they'd honestly play better. Probably.
Absolutely.
So it's a coach that doesn't care, and when you have a coach that doesn't care, you have a team that doesn't care. So I'm taking Las Vegas.
All right, we got AFC South matchup: Colts and Texans. I think the Texans are going to take this one. I really do.
This is a tough one. The AFC South pretty competitive this year, isn't it? The Texans coming off a nice win against the Lions. The Colts just looked really
bad. They didn't look so good. I think Deshaun Watson's hitting his stride, as we mentioned earlier, and I think he's going to take this Colts team out.
Yeah. The Colts have been a better overall team. That's the thing. But again, it's just momentum. Who has the momentum here? It's hard to take Deshaun. I think you got to take Deshaun Watson over Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
So I'll take Houston as well here, just to keep the momentum going. And the Colts may have peaked. So, we'll see emotionally what impact that Tennessee loss had on them, because that was a big time loss.
We got Rams Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are going to take this one.
I think this one could go either way. I think this is a good matchup. But Cardinals are coming off 2 losses back at home. I haven't seen anything from the Rams offense as of recent. I think it could go either way, but I'm going to lean towards Arizona on this one.
It could go either way. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
We got the Giants and the Seahawks.
Yeah, Giants going to Seattle against a playoff team that's hitting their stride. The Giants have been playing better football as of late, sound football. We don't know Daniel Jones' status, but Seattle's a tough place to win, even without the crowd.
I was gonna say, I think Seattle's gonna win this one.
Seattle just, they're on their mission for the playoffs here. So I'm gonna go ahead and take Seattle.
Eagles, Packers.
Green Bay.
Patriots, Chargers.
Whew. It's in LA.
I think Bill Belichick knows how to win. I think I'm going to take the Patriots.
Yeah, Bill Belichick plays pretty well against rookie quarterbacks, but Justin Herbert's been so good.
He's been so good, but I think Bill Belichick is going to out-coach Anthony Lynn. That's really what it's coming down to.
Yeah, that's fair. They've been on such a big losing streak. I'm going to take the Chargers solely just because of my love for Justin Herbert. That's
A-okay, dude. That's awesome. Broncos, Chiefs. I'm taking the Chiefs.
Yeah, whoever plays quarterback for the Broncos, it's not going to be enough to go against Patrick Mahomes.
It is not, no.
Another bad Sunday night game, but at least we get to see Patrick Mahomes, which is always fun. I'm taking the Chiefs.
So Monday, this was supposed to be a Sunday game, but it got moved to Monday. We have the football team versus the Steelers.
The football team played well last week, but I'm going to take the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I'm taking the Steelers.
Yep.
All right, the actual Monday night football game, we have the Bills and the 49ers.
the Bills and the 49ers. I'm going to take. Again, with Kyle Shanahan, it's impressive. Even with this many injuries, they're never out of a game. But
They're not.
Buffalo's on a roll here, and they are also well coached. They can win in different ways. I'm going to take Buffalo.
I am taking Buffalo with you as well. And then our Thursday night game, which got moved to Tuesday, we have the Cowboys and the Ravens.
So is RG3 starting?
No idea. We barely even know what's going on with this Wednesday game tomorrow.
So I certainly think, without a healthy Lamar Jackson, as much as he's been struggling, it certainly gets harder here. And
Yeah.
does give Dallas a chance to pull up an upset, but Dallas has just not been playing good football, and the Ravens still are.
Honestly, I think Dallas is just on a downhill spiral that they're going to lose this one.
Yeah, and the Ravens are still a well-coached team that can play defense, so I'm going to go with the Baltimore Ravens.
Now, this one shocks me. We have two teams on a bye week here. The Buccaneers and Panthers do get some rest.
Yeah, so Carolina, Teddy Bridgewater, he gets to heal up a little bit. He's been battling injuries, and get Joey Sly some more practice on 60-yard attempts.
Yeah, I'm shocked. I didn't think there was any more bye weeks this late in the year.
And yeah, it's weird. Week what are we? Week 13? Yeah, week 13 bye week, kind of strange. And then Tampa, again, they need to make adjustments. So I think a needed bye for them at this point.
They're definitely going to need that bye.
I'm just looking if there are any college football games I want to point out here. I can't even check the college football schedule until like the end of the week because half the games are going to get canceled because of COVID.
I was going to say, don't they get moved around much more?
Yeah, they're all going to get it. But we do have rankings. We do have rankings released tonight. So I'm not going to preview any of the games because half of these are going to get canceled. But I'll check back in on the rankings next.
All right, so Cary, as always, I love having you here. It's always fun talking football with you.
I love being here. I appreciate you letting me rant about Bruce Arians and Doug Peterson.
Look, we each got to rant about something. You got your Bruce Arians out. I discussed the Broncos.
Yeah, we had to get some stuff off our chest this week.
That Broncos thing still makes me mad.
Happens.
All right, as always, Cary, I'll give you the floor if you want to plug anything you want to plug.
I appreciate that. Yeah, so go check me out at my blog. It's Football CK. That's one word. Those are my initials, CK. So football, then the letters CK, all lowercase, .wordpress.com. I will be posting these podcast episodes there if you want to listen to past episodes, and I will post a link for them on every platform because this is available on every platform. And I also that's just my personal blog for football articles. And there are buttons to subscribe. You'll get an email whenever there's a new article. You can read it right in your email. And then also I'm at the LA Football Network, which is a startup focused on LA football, both UCLA, USC, Chargers, and Rams. So you can follow us at lafbnetwork.com. That's one word, lafbnetwork.com. And go to the UCLA section where you will see my previews and my recaps. I split it with one other UCLA writer. And you can also connect with me on LinkedIn, CaryKrongard, for any professional opportunities, freelance writing, or podcasting opportunities. And Sam, hopefully we will meet up again next week.
Absolutely, everyone. On the terms of our side, we have our Twitch channel, which we streamed on for 5 hours last week. We will be, I don't know about how long, but we will be back again this week with our live Week 13 reactions. We went through all the games. We had a fun time. I hope everyone can come check it out again. Twitch.tv/Till the Whistle podcast. Always a great time. And you can check us out on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube. We are working right now on a huge YouTube project, and hopefully that could be out sometime this month, hopefully. So make sure to keep your eyes out for that as well. Besides that, everyone, enjoy the rest of your day.